The Platting Board meeting will come to order. It is February 5th, 6:37 p.m. And the reason we're starting a couple of minutes late is we had a lot of last-minute comments put on the table. And it's just so everybody knows, it's difficult at times for us to be able to assimilate this late information. There are deadlines that should have been met. But tonight, everybody has had a chance to read those late comments. That's why we're starting late. The first order of business is roll call. May I have roll call, please?
Mr. Story?
Here.
Mr. Abel? Mr. Fuller?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Present.
Mr. Cole? Mr. Kange?
Here.
Mr. Edmondson? Mr. Walker?
Here.
Ms. Enix? Here. Thank you.
Mr. Edmondson and Mr. Abel have been excused. Are there any agenda changes tonight? I see there's 2 postponements. And if anybody is here for case number S12042-1, Diamond Willow Estates, that is postponed. And also S12048-1, Spruce Creek Subdivision, that is also postponed until next month. So if anybody is here for those, we're not going to hear those tonight. The next item on the agenda is approvals. And we have for approvals we have summary of actions and for January, and these are just informational. Is that correct? This one? Okay. Excuse me. For January 15th, 2014, the summary of action needs to be approved. May I have a positive motion? Mr. Kange and Mr. Walker seconds. Is there any objection or discussion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries and this is approved. The next item on the agenda is, let me go through. Minutes, and we have minutes from February 6th, 2013, March 20th, 2013, April 3rd, 2013, May 1st, 2013, June 5th, 2013, July 17th, 2013, and December 4th. We have a choice of approving all of these together or pulling any one of these out, or any of these out and address them separately. May I have a positive motion, please, to approve these minutes? Mr. Kange moves and Mr. Walker seconds. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing and seeing none, these minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda, special order of business, is disclosures. Are there any disclosures tonight? Ms. Enix.
I would like to disclose that on, let's see here, petitioner's representative for Hillcrest Homes, Tom Dreyer, is a known person to me, although I have no interest in this case or have any work with Hillcrest Homes. I just wanted to disclose that and say that I feel like there's no conflict with me hearing the case, and I'd like to participate.
Thank you. May I have a positive motion to directing Ms. Enix to participate, please?
Chair, what case was that? 'Cause there are a couple with Hillcrest on the agenda. All of them are like...
Well, the S4 group, where he's representing.
That would be case S12044-1 Greyhawk subdivision, and it would Spruce Ridge, which is going to be postponed, and it would be 12047-1 Little Bear subdivision, Tract 1. And Mr. Kanes, are you making this motion?
Yes.
And Mr. Walker seconds. Would you speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regard to case S12044-1 and case S12047-1, Ms. Enix has stated that she has no financial interest in the below cases, although she knows some of the parties involved with the case. I believe that she can act fair, and I would direct Ms. Enix to participate in those two cases. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing and seeing none, Ms. Enix, you are directed to participate. And Mr. Walker, do you have a disclosure?
Yes, in matter S12043-1, Winter Park subdivision versus Chester subdivision, I represented a party adverse to Harold Green, the petitioner, a year ago. That case has been resolved. I believe that I can fairly evaluate the facts in this case and act impartially in this matter, and would ask to be allowed to participate.
Thank you. May I have a positive motion directing Mr. Walker to participate in case S12043-1? Mr. Kanes and Mr. Fuller seconds. Mr. Kanes, would you speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And with regard to case S12043-1, I believe Mr. Walker can act fairly and evaluate the facts. He stated he has no personal financial interest in the case, and I move to direct Mr. Walker to participate in that case.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, Mr. Walker is directed to participate in the Winter Park subdivision case S12043-1. Mr. Walker, do you have any other disclosures? Are there any other disclosures? Mr. Cole.
In S12044-1 Greyhawk subdivision, petitioner Holtquist Homes, I believe I represented principal in that years ago, and the company at one point would be the same for S12047-1. In each case, none of my representation had anything to do with the present action, have no direct or indirect benefit from the outcome, and nothing monetarily.
Thank you. May I have a positive motion directing Mr. Cole to participate in cases S12044-1 and S12047-1? Mr. Walker and Mr. Kanes seconds. Mr. Walker, will you speak to your motion, please?
I move to direct Mr. Cole to participate in actions S12047-1 and S12044-1.
Thank you. And is there any discussion? Any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. And Mr. Cole, you're directed to participate in case S12044-1 and S12047-1. Are there any additional disclosures tonight? I have a few, and I will try to make this brief. In case S12043-1 Winter Park subdivision, lots 1A and 2A, and Chester subdivision, lots 11B-1, 11C-1, and 10A-1. My firm had business dealings with the petitioner on this property in the past. The business relationship ended in an adverse situation. The adverse situation was resolved. My firm has ongoing business dealings with the petitioner's representative on another property. I have no financial or personal interest in the matters before the board tonight. I can remain impartial in fact and action as a member of this board without personal bias. My past involvement and personal interests will not prevent me from fairly evaluating the facts of this case. May I have a positive motion directing me to participate, please? Mr. Kange and Mr. Fuller seconds. Mr. Kange, will you speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the aforementioned case, I move to direct Chairman Young to participate.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or opposition?
Just for the record, through the chair, I'd like to point out that Mr. Young has stated he has no financial or personal interest in the case, and I tend to vote in favor of my motion.
Thank you. Any opposition or further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries, and I am directed to participate in case S12043-1 Winter Park subdivision. My next disclosure, I'm going to do a group of disclosures. If anyone on the board wants to separate these out, we can. In the case of S12044-1 Greyhawk subdivision, in the case S12046-1 Spruce Ridge Estates subdivision, and case S12047-1 Little Bear subdivision, Tract 1, my firm has had business dealings with the petitioners and their representatives on other matters. I have no financial or personal interest in the matters before the board tonight. I can remain impartial in fact and action as a member of this board without personal bias. My past involvement and personal interests will not prevent me from fairly evaluating the facts of this case. And additionally, on the Spruce Ridge Estates case, my firm is doing stormwater services for this property, but that has nothing to do with the matter that's in front of the board tonight. So on these three cases, may I have a positive motion directing me to participate? Thank you, Mr. Kange. And as a second, Mr. Walker. Mr. Kange, will you state your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to direct Chairman Young to participate in the three cases 12044-1, 46-1, and 47-1. Through the Chair's statement and testimony, I believe he can fairly evaluate the case before us on its merits, and I tend to vote in favor of my motion.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion, additional discussion? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes and I'm directed to participate. Thank you. The next item on special order of business is informational items, and I want to acknowledge that abbreviated plat action summaries from January 6th and January 13th of 2014 are in front of us. Are there any comments or discussion on these two action summaries? These are informational, so we don't have to approve these. Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to consent agenda. And is there one time extension? Okay, there's nothing under the consent agenda. So there's nothing under old business, and so we're now in new business. Okay. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at its meeting is after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedure. Petitioners, including all of his or her representatives, have 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. And I want to clarify for rebuttal, if you don't use all of your time during your presentation, the remaining time you can use for rebuttal. If you wish to reserve time for rebuttal, for example, you want to reserve 2 minutes, absolutely, then please notify us at the very beginning, and we'll set the timer for 8 minutes instead of 10 minutes, and then you'll have whatever time is left over plus those 2 minutes. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc. have 5 minutes, and individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 21.11.304. The decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record. Unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision within 20 days of the final appealable decision. An interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per 21.11.503 or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision per AMC 21.30. The first case tonight is case S11839-3, O'Malley Square subdivision. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for a second time extension for case S11839, O'Malley Square subdivision. On January 5th of 2011, the Platting Board approved the subdivision of 6 lots and 2 deed parcels into 2 lots with partial vacations of Gamble Street and East 112th Avenue with a variance from AMC 2180-010 for dedication of streets. First time extension request was approved by the Platting Board on September 5th of 2012. This second and final time extension request was received December 17th of 2013 prior to the January 6, 2014 expiration date. The conditions are substantially the same as those which existed when the preliminary plat was originally approved, as required by AMC 2115-115D3. Reviewing agencies had either no comment or no objection to this time extension request, and thus the department recommends approval of this second and final 18-month time extension to July 6th of 2015. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Mr. Walker.
On page 19, there are some comments down there from the municipality of Anchorage water and wastewater utility. Are those comments addressed in your memorandum here?
Through the chair, Mr. Walker, those comments were the same comments that were placed on the original plat, so those will be resolved with the original conditions of approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions of staff? Will we now open the public testimony portion of the hearing? Will the petitioner's representative please approach the podium, state your full name, spell your last name for the record, and let us know if you have any time to reserve. Is there a representative here tonight for the petitioner, or is the petitioner here tonight? Hearing and seeing none, does the board wish to proceed and do this without the petitioner's presence or the petitioner's representative? I see.
Yes.
Everybody is nodding yes, so we are going to proceed. We've had staff's presentation. Is there anybody from the public wishing to testify tonight? Is there anybody at all wishing to testify? Hearing and seeing none, the public testimony portion of this hearing is closed. The matter now rests with the board. May I have a positive motion in this case, and Mr. Kange is going to make the motion, and Mr. Walker is going to second.
Thank you. Through the chair, and, with regard to case S11839-3, I move to approve this second time extension. You want me to speak to my motion now? Or?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Again, through the chair, based on the fact that the conditions are substantially the same, they have not changed since the first time extension, and it's approved and supported by staff testimony and in our staff packet, and reviewing agencies again have no comment, and with no adverse comments from the public or reviewing agencies, I tend to vote in favor of this motion.
Thank you. Is there any additional discussion?
I'd also like the record to reflect that the request was timely made in compliance with AMC 2115-115 D2.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Are there any additional discussion? Mr. Cole.
I'd just like the record to reflect that I'm always troubled when I'm asked to vote on something that the petitioner doesn't even show up. I mean, I have a hard time with that. I understand that people have obligations, but it's disconcerting to me when they don't show up.
Mr. Cole, I agree. I don't know what else to do. We either go forward or we postpone, right. And we chose to go forward. But I do agree that the petitioner should be here, or his representative. Are there any additional comments or discussion? Sir, I have one, and I'm just going to reiterate Mr. Kange's statement that one of the requirements for continuing or approving a time extension is that essentially the plat remains essentially the same, and I find, as well as Mr. Kange found, that the plat conditions are essentially the same. I'm going to support this motion. Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, this motion passes and this case is approved. The next case is case S12031-2, Eagle River High School Subdivision. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for preliminary plat to subdivide 30 lots in one tract into 3 tracts with vacation of a portion of a 40-foot electrical distribution line. This plat is essentially a request for reapproval of a previous platting action for case S11099. I'd like to give just a quick history of the property and of the case, if I could. I'll try to be as brief as possible. On June 18th of 2013, the Platting Board approved a 90-acre preliminary plat of 27 lots into 3 tracts and approved the vacation of that 40-foot electric distribution line easement. That preliminary plat was subject to 8 conditions. An 18-month time extension was then approved on April 6, 2005. This time extension was approved subject to 12 conditions, and they can be found in your staff packet. December 14th of 2005, the Board of Adjustment found that the Platting Board's decision requiring the upgrading of Yosemite Drive to a collector standard was not supported in the record by substantial evidence, and thus the Board of Adjustment deleted and replaced conditions of approval for platting case S11099 and -3 and -4. On October 15th of 2008, the Superior Court reversed that Board of Adjustment decision and reinstated the Platting Board's decision regarding the upgrades to Yosemite Drive. The Superior Court's decision was further appealed to the Supreme Court. On April 2nd of 2010, the Supreme Court affirmed the Superior Court and the Platting Board's decision. On March 7th, 2012, the Platting Board approved a request for a second 18-month time extension for that platting action, but denied a variance from AMC 2185030 improvement requirements by improvement area, and an amendment to condition of approval number 11 for case S11099-3 and -4 regarding the improvements to Yosemite Drive. The 18-month time extension expired April 2nd of 2013. This approval request will allow the petitioner to complete the previous plat process. As is mentioned in the history, Yosemite Drive is a big issue with this case, and I'd like to just give a brief history of Yosemite Drive. Yosemite Drive extends to the southwesterly direction through the petition site from Eagle Point subdivision. Yosemite Drive abuts the western boundary of the proposed Tract A and provides access to Eagle River High School via Eagle River Loop Road. Yosemite Drive from Eagle Point subdivision to Eagle River Loop Road was constructed to a 24-foot strip paved standard with 2-foot gravel shoulders by the developer of Eagle Point subdivision. Yosemite Drive was classified as a collector street on September 23rd of 2003 when the Assembly adopted the Chugiak-Eagle River Long-Range Transportation Plan under Ordinance AO 2003-128. The ordinance amended the 1996 Official Streets and Highways Plan map for Eagle River, identifying Yosemite Drive as a collector street. The petitioner entered into a development agreement with the municipality of Anchorage on March 22nd, 2013 to upgrade Yosemite Drive from Eagle River Loop Road to Yellowstone Drive to municipal urban collector street standards, and those standards can be found on page 10 of your staff packet. With this request, the petitioner is proposing to vacate a portion of a 40-foot electrical distribution line located in the northeast corner of proposed Tract A. The vacation request has been reviewed and found to conform to the municipal vacation policy. Reviewing agencies have provided no comments or expressed no objection to this vacation request. Thus, staff is recommending approval. In an effort to ensure that the easement is access to municipal need, staff is requesting that the petitioner obtain letters of non-objection from all utilities prior to recording of the plat. The utilities expressed no objection with their comments. However, staff feels that it's important to allow the utilities one more opportunity to express no objection, and thus we're requiring that. So with that said, staff would like to recommend approval of the vacation request as well as approval of the plat for 18 months subject to the conditions listed on pages 11 and 12 of your staff packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Hearing and seeing no questions, we will now open up the public testimony portion of this hearing. Would you like to reserve any time for rebuttal?
Yes, sir, I would. I'd like to reserve 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
My name's Ken Ayers, A-Y-E-R-S, with Lounsbury & Associates, representing the school district here tonight. Staff has presented a pretty good case history. This is essentially a reapproval of previously approved plat. The Heritage Land Bank is also one of the owners, or actually the owner of the lands. There were 2 or 3 parcels added over on the west boundary of the subdivision that is part of the municipal maintenance station over there that were excluded previously. So that's why there's a couple of extra tracks. We have no objection to staff's recommendations as written, and there have been public comments submitted. I'd like to direct you to page 62. That's from the Eagle Point Homeowners Association. These same conditions were also submitted by LBJ LLC. Essentially, they have 9 conditions that they had put on here. I'd just like to note that conditions 1, 2, 4, and 6 all deal with the construction of Yosemite Drive and drainage improvements there. All of those improvements are covered in the development agreement that's on page 27 of your packet. That contract has been awarded for design, and that process is now getting started on the design of that collector street improvement. The other items that they had noted here was their item number 3 was revegetating some trees within a 15-foot area. It's actually within the Yosemite Drive right-of-way. It's not part of the 100-foot buffer. The 100-foot buffer is still there. Those trees were taken out as part of a sanitary sewer project that was constructed. Condition 5, I can't really speak to a secondary access for Eagle River Road. I think that's an area-wide issue. It may merit some additional questions or comments, which we'd be happy to try and answer. The conditions 7 and 8 have to deal with the time for the approval of this plat. We would like to have the 18-month approval, and we do not wish to have any limitations on additional time extensions, just from a practical standpoint. And item 9, submitting the plans for the improvements to the roadway. That entire process will be going through in a public involvement process. There'll be public meetings. The plans will be going to the Planning and Zoning Commission, also the Urban Design Commission. I would be happy to answer any questions, and if I can't answer them, I have my partner Jim Sawhill here, who's the engineer on the project, and the school district is also in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you. You have 2 minutes plus 5, so you have 7 minutes for rebuttal. Are there any questions for the petitioner's representative? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify tonight?
Good evening. My name is Joe Vicente, and my company, LBJ LLC, is the developer of Eagle Point subdivision. I'm here today because...
Mr. Vicente, are you representing the homeowners association?
No, I'm not. I'm representing my development company. I have been authorized by the homeowners association to speak for them, but I'm really speaking now on behalf of LBJ.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. I regret that this is apparently the 6th time that the school district is before you on regarding this subdivision. A private developer would never been allowed to do what the school district has made you go through. I would like to recommend that the plat be approved for the 18 months. No administrative or platting board time extension should be granted to this plat. 11 years is more than enough to have completed all the improvements. They are making a mockery of Title 21. Revegetation of the 15-foot wide area along the west side of the Yosemite Drive is an absolute necessity. You don't have roads in Anchorage with 100-foot wide vegetative easements. The wide easement was required to provide addition buffer against the correctional facility. The school district chose to destroy that buffer. That buffer should be restored. No construction permits for facilities within the school property shall be issued by MOA until the final plat is filed. The school is there illegally. You would not be able to get a single-family home permit crossing over existing property lines. That one crosses several. The zoning does not yet allow the school to be constructed at site. Not until the final plat is recorded. Finally, I don't understand why the staff did not recommend to the school district to enter into a subdivision agreement like all land subdividers in Anchorage are required to enter for construction of Yosemite Drive. The agreement they have with the municipality is not a substitute for the subdivision agreement. It's an equivalent agreement to end the subdivider and this engineering firm for construction of a road, not a substitute for the requirement. What the Anchorage School District is attempted to do is to deviate from Title 21 and be able to record the final plat. That should not be allowed. Unfortunately, the school district and the MOA are making a mockery of Title 21. The rezoning that allows schools to be constructed site has not been finalized. School is there illegally. MOA issued a building permit. Yeah. Anyway.
We interrupted you at the beginning. Go ahead and wrap up, please.
Anyway, that's essentially what I have to do. I would like to probably give you a history of that project, but it's a disgrace to this community. They should not be allowed.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Bissant? Thank you.
Sure.
Is there, Mr. Cole? Thank you. Mr. Bissant? There is one question, at least.
So, your subdivision sits close to the school.
Correct.
Have you brought your concerns to the staff for this hearing?
I've been really in constant contact with the staff for the last 11 years on this issue. I've been in contact recently when a new site plan was approved by the Urban Design Commission. We've submitted comments. There are comments actually that were submitted, I know, to the municipality, to Public Works, vice versa, the road maintenance. The second comments from the Homeowners Association, which are not reflected in your package. Yes, I have had contact, and they know I did not bring up the issue of the subdivision agreement because only when I came here today, I realized that they were not making that recommendation, which is the first time I've seen in any subdivision.
Okay, so, but just kind of, because I'm having a hard time understanding all the conditions that you think should be in here. And again, my question is, when did you learn that we were going to have this hearing today on this petition? When do you think you learned about this?
Probably a couple of months ago.
And you've gone through this process before, so you understand the process of the
Yes.
platting and going through the staff?
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, did you contact the staff when you learned a couple months ago that there was going to be a hearing and tell them about your concerns on this petition?
Not in the last couple of months, because I would have addressed my concern, just to express you, had I known what the recommendations for approval were. But the staff does not make that known to the public.
So your concerns are based more upon what the recommendations that have come along with this?
Both. Previous attitude towards the plat, and also on the recommendations that I've seen today.
But I thought you said you didn't disagree with the plat being approved.
Yeah, because I want the road constructed. And it's a mockery what is going on. Nobody.
I understand that you're frustrated with the length of time that it's taken.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. But at the end of the day, you want us to approve the plat.
Yes, because that's the only way I'm going to have that road constructed. And again, the school district should be made aware that no extension shall be granted.
Well, I mean, I don't know that I need to get into. I don't know the reasons behind all this. I'm not on the board, but I mean, I don't know who plays favorites or not, but it seems like almost routinely we give extensions for everybody that comes in front of us, and very few times, although I have to say, I think I seem to remember something related to this area, somebody coming in, and I'm being unhappy about an extension that was given sometime before, but I mean, how is that going to help by saying we're not going to give them an extension?
Because nobody in this community has gotten approval of any project 11 years ago and still have not met their obligation in accordance with Title 21. If we don't enforce Title 21 to everybody, like the Supreme Court of this great state said the school district had to do, then let's throw it in the garbage can.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Phoenix, you still have questions?
Oh, I have a question for you. Did I understand you correctly when you stated that the 15-foot vegetative buffer was a necessity because the 100-foot vegetated buffer was removed?
About 15 years ago, I was dealing with the municipality on the access to my subdivision. The my intended access was actually to be in a different location, behind the school. The municipality proposed to me that they would rather allocate the access where it was eventually constructed, within a 100-foot wide easement. The reason for the 100-foot wide easement was because that future right-of-way, 100-foot wide right-of-way, would provide additional vegetation as a buffer against the correctional facility. The municipality proposed that to me with the condition they would do that if I were to purchase 100-foot wide right-of-way from the mental health lands, the first 800 feet of road from the Eagle River Loop Road. I agreed to that. And I bought that right-of-way and dedicated to the municipality. Next thing I know, that vegetation that was supposed to be the additional buffer was gone.
So there's no longer the 100-foot vegetative buffer?
There is no. That additional vegetation of the 15 feet is gone.
But not of 100 feet?
No. Let's say 60-foot wide was removed for construction of the Eagle River, of Yosemite Drive. The additional vegetation was removed 3 years ago when the school district installed the sanitary sewer line.
So how much vegetation is left?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing. And really, all residential streets in Anchorage are the rights of ways are either 60 feet wide or 70 feet within where collector roads are constructed.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Excuse me, I have a question. On your item number 6, construct the on-site and off-site drainage system required to adequately serve Yosemite Drive, the school site, and the other parcels of land involved in the subdivision. I remember the last time that you were in front of us discussing this, that there was some questions about the drainage. Would you mind elucidating or clarifying for us the drainage issues that exist today?
Right now, we still have a few drainage issues, and that will not go away until the school district constructs the required drainage improvements. The school district didn't do the right job for the drainage improvements. As a result, my subdivision was flooded several times. One lot at the entrance of the subdivision was damaged with the water running down the slope towards the green belt. There was a 12-foot deep gauge on that bluff. There has been an issue of the basement of house has been flooded because the pond the school district constructed within the school site was inadequate. They did not line it, and the water went through layers and they flooded the basement of the houses. It's just a disaster after another.
So just addressing the drainage issues for a moment, what could the board do to see that the drainage gets resolved in the next, if we approve this time extension, to get this resolved in the next 18 months?
make sure that drainage improvements, the way they have so far been described to me that they will be constructing, collecting the drainage within the school site, and then channelize it through with a pipe towards the north through to the Eagle River Green Belt and eventually out falling into the river, that in reality is constructed. It's very important that the drainage and the road be constructed simultaneously.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any additional questions for Mr. Vassant? Thank you. How many other people are here tonight to testify in this case? Please raise your hands. I see none. So there's no additional testimony. Oh, Mr. Cole has a question. Thank you.
Through the chair, I have a question for staff.
Proceed.
So I'm trying to remember, is this the case where I was very unhappy about the school district about 2 years ago? And I thought I said something about it?
Through the chair, Mr. Cole, I believe you're correct. Yeah, I think you were unhappy about the time period it took to get the plat done. Yes.
This is the same case?
I believe so.
And do you have any comments on what we've heard from the public comment?
Through the chair, Mr. Cole, this case has a long past, has a long history. I think that everybody wants to see a resolution to it. I think we have a plan of action in place. We've got funding in place to get the road constructed. Well, actually, I'm sorry, to get the engineering in place, design, and then they're working on getting additional funding for the construction. I believe this will be hopefully the last time that you'll be seeing this plat. We can record the plat and get the road constructed as Mr. Vicente would like. I think we all want the plat to be done. I think we all want to see the road constructed. So hopefully this will be the last time that you see it before you. With regard to Mr. Vicente's comments, the subdivision agreement, as I stated before, the school district is under development agreement to construct Yosemite Drive to urban collector standards. Thus, there is no requirement for a development agreement or a subdivision agreement. It's already in place, so there's no need to restate it on a plat if we've already got an agreement in place. So that's why that wasn't there. I know he was concerned about that, and that's the reason why it's not in the case. I've got no other comments than that.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? And there's no one else from the public wishing to testify. May we have the petitioner's representative, if you would like to use your rebuttal time? Mr. Ayers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think everybody's in agreement. We want to see this plat approved, recorded, and we want to see all the improvements built. So funding and design is underway. There's a lot of competition for public dollars, and it takes time sometimes to get these things in place. Another consulting firm is doing the drainage design and analysis, and I know that is already underway. And the road improvements are going to start design. We've got a signed contract this week. So I think we all have the same goal: get it constructed.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions of the petitioner's representative? Mr. Walker.
I was hoping you could address the vacation request with a little more detail. Is there any wires presently in that easement area?
I'm sorry, Mr. Walker. I was having a hard time hearing you. Could you speak into your microphone?
Yeah, you were asking for a vacation request in this matter, right?
The vacation was an electrical easement that runs through the property. It was requested to be vacated previously, and it was approved. I don't believe that there's any facilities in that easement location, and we will work with utilities to resolve any needs for any easement there.
I didn't see, it looked like the easement ran in favor of Matanuska Electrical,
Mr. Walker, that is true. It's Matanuska Electric out in Eagle River.
but I didn't see that they had any comments in here on it.
I don't believe they have any objection to the vacation. I don't believe there's any facilities there.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions to the petitioner's representative? Ms. Enix and then Mr. Cole.
Can you tell me if there is any opportunity in the design to allow for more vegetative buffer?
Through the chair, Ms. Enix, the 100-foot vegetative buffer is outside of the right-of-way. It's on the west side of the right-of-way along Yosemite Drive. The clearing that took place for the sewer line was within the right-of-way, did not touch that buffer at all.
So there is still a buffer.
There is still a 100-foot buffer along the west side of Yosemite Drive on Heritage Land-Baked Lands.
That's all. Thank you.
Are there any additional questions? I have one on the, or I actually have several, but on the drainage, it seems like this has gone on for a long time, not having adequate drainage, and there's nothing I can change in the past. But I would like some assurances that if this is approved tonight, that this drainage is going to get resolved timely so that there's no more continuing flooding of the downgradient subdivision.
Mr. Chairman, as I said, the drainage analysis is being done by another firm. I know that process is underway. I believe that that's all covered in the development agreement between the Municipality Public Works and the school district, and the Public Works is actually responsible for the drainage improvements, is my understanding.
And will those drainage improvements be made simultaneously with the improvements to the road, or will they be done separately?
I cannot answer that question if they'll be simultaneously or if one will occur before the other.
Thank you. And then I also had a question about ensuring that the easements are in excess to municipal needs. The staff is requesting that the petitioner obtain letters of non-objection from all utilities. And I was thinking that should have been done. The burden of proof is on the petitioner. And I'm not clear that that has or hasn't been done. So can you help us understand that?
Mr. Chairman, because it was previously approved for vacation under the previous approval, there was no objection to the vacation at the time. We did not contact the utilities in advance. They didn't submit any comments objecting to it this time, and we don't anticipate any trouble obtaining their letters of non-objection.
Thank you. And Mr. Sawhill, did you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my name is Jim Sawhill. I just wanted to clarify the drainage issue. In the development agreement, it is the responsibility of project management and engineering to undertake that task. They have completed a design study report and selected the preferred alternative for solving the drainage, and that design is underway. And the road will not be built before the drainage is installed. We're hoping to do it simultaneously. If they are sequenced, the drainage will be done before the road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions of the petitioner's representative? Thank you.
Thank you.
The public testimony portion of the hearing is now closed. The matter rests with the board. May I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Walker, and it's going to be seconded by Mr. Cole, and the first motion is for the vacation.
As the case S12031-2 Eagle River High School subdivision, I move for approval of the request to vacate a portion of the 40-foot electrical distribution line located in the northeast corner of proposed Tract A, subject to submitting letters of non-objection from all affected utilities and recording a suitable plat within 18 months of approval.
Thank you. And Mr. Cole seconds. And Mr. Walker, will you speak to your motion, please?
Based on the fact that the vacation request had been previously approved in one of the earlier plats, and that the finding had already been made that the easement has no value, I believe that burden has been borne once, and that should be sufficient. There are no wires in the area, and I've heard no comments here or anyone objecting to it.
Thank you. Is there any additional discussion or findings? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. May I have another positive motion for item B? Mr. Walker and Mr. Cole is going to second. Mr. Walker, will you state your motion, please?
As to case number S12031-2 Eagle River High School subdivision, I move to approve the preliminary plat for 18 months, subject to the following conditions listed on page 11 and 12, numbered 1 through 9 of the staff analysis and notes.
Thank you. And would you speak to your motion, please?
Based on the discussion here and the support that has been given by those that have spoken, I believe that granting the extension and allowing the parties to proceed on the plans already in place and with the development plan that has been already signed, that would be the most efficient process, would be to approve the plat.
Thank you. And Mr. Cole?
Thank you. Through the chair, I intend to vote for this. I will say that I'm going to express again my previous concerns about the length of time this has taken. It does seem, though, that I'm in agreement with both staff and the petitioner's representative that at the end of the day, everybody wants to see this project completed. In looking at the recommendations on page 62, the only one that seemed to be at issue has to do with the vegetation, and I'm just not qualified to require something that I just don't know enough about. But it does appear that a number of the other ones have been addressed. I certainly don't think that it's appropriate, at least at this time, to say that I would not grant a continuance, because at the end of the day, I think everybody wants to see this project gets done. And who knows what's going to happen between now and then. But I think everybody should know that, at least from my perspective, if it's not done, I'm going to question it again next time and ask for reasons why. So, but with that, I'm going to vote for this.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Any other findings? Mr. Walker.
Yes, with respect to the, there were some allegations about a 15-foot area wide area that had been denuded and or some 100-foot wide vegetative area. I didn't see in any of the aerial photographs the area. I didn't find that testimony in that area compelling that that things haven't proceeded properly, or that the 100-foot buffer doesn't in fact exist. And so that's why I'm not making any, not proposing to make the change that was suggested from Jose Vicente.
Thank you. Any additional discussion or findings? I'll take this opportunity to say that I intend to support this. I am concerned that the drainage hasn't been addressed for 11 years, that I am going to support it because the testimony tonight is that the drainage is in design phase right now, and the intent is to go forward with the drainage improvements as well as bringing the road up to the collector status. And for those reasons, I intend to support this. Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. The next case in front of us is S12042-1 Diamond Willow Subdivision. May I have a motion to postpone this case? Mr. Walker. Mr. Kanes is going to second. Mr. Walker, will you state your motion?
As the case S12042-1, Body Renew Alaska LLC, I move to postpone the reference case to March 5th, 2014, pursuant to the petitioner's request.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing and seeing none, the Diamond Willow subdivision plat is postponed until next month. The next case is S12045-1, John Wayne Subdivision. May we have staff's presentation, please?
This is a request to combine 9 lots into 2 tracts. Petitioner is also requesting to vacate East 95th Circle and a drainage easement that's on property. The petitioner is finally requesting a variance from design standards lot dimensions to allow both tracks to be less than the required depth to width ratio. All the property within this subdivision is under the same ownership. East 95th Circle appears to be in excess of municipal needs because it is not needed for traffic circulation, will not now or in the future. The municipal traffic engineering section does not object to the vacation. However, they request that the existing driveway from proposed Tract A to King Street be converted into emergency vehicle access only. The traffic engineer recognizes that the municipal traffic engineering division recognizes that the driveway is needed for fire access, but wants to eliminate it from public use. This is because the OSNHP discourages driveways onto collector streets. King Street is a collector. Therefore, a plat note should be required, which limits proposed Tract A and B to a single common access to King Street while permitting an additional access to Tract A for emergency vehicles only. Restricting Tracts A and B to a single common access for the public meets the intent of the official Streets and Highways Plan. The standards for a subdivision variance are met. The department recommends approval of the vacation of East 95th Circle and the 30-foot wide drainage easement. That's written on page 7 of your packet. The department's recommending approval of the granting of the variance from the depth to width subdivision standard. That's also on page 7. And finally, the department's recommending approval of the plat for 18 months subject to conditions 1 through 9 on pages 7, 8, and 9. Be happy to answer questions, and the petitioners here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Mr. Cole.
We've got a comment.
Oh,
Do you have any comment on that?
yes, thank you. I meant to point out that we have supplemental comments laid on the table this evening. Member of the public is concerned about drainage, if vacation in the drainage easement negatively affecting neighboring properties. This drainage easement goes from East 95th Circle, which will be vacated, to partway down into the property. So when the street is vacated and the drainage easement is vacated, then that'll just mean that the property owner will have to deal with drainage on their own site. But this isn't going to create a drainage problem. It's just as if, you don't need a dead-end drainage easement on your own property. Further, with redevelopment of the property, the purpose of this plat is to allow for the construction of a new building that would cross lot lines. And that's why they're eliminating these lot lines. And a full drainage analysis will be required. I think that this comment, if I were to guess, probably just stems from, the public notification for these public hearing cases is not, we don't really do a terrific job of explaining where the drainage easement is, where it goes, how it'll affect people. They have to come in and attend a meeting like this or call in and speak to us. So I think that this is just a cautionary comment probably, but this issue will be dealt with, and the property owner will be prohibited from draining onto abutting rights of way and onto neighboring properties.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions of staff? I have one on drainage also. I'm confused on the drainage, and this is respect to the public comment as well. It's the map that was provided to us shows a drainage easement that is to be vacated by this plat that runs north-south. Is there, and I see, is the east-west drainage easement also being vacated?
No, the 30-foot wide drainage easement running east-west is not affected. It's only the north-south one. You can see it on page 10 of your packet, or if you've opened up the preliminary plat shows it.
Thank you, and that seems to address the concern of the public comment. Thank you. Mr. Story.
Through the chair, for staff, just for my own clarification, I know on these last two cases, talking about drainage, on both of them, on this one on page 4C, where the petitioner is alerted to the pending requirements to provide a full drainage analysis, and on the previous one where they entered into a development agreement, how do those coincide with the plat, and what's the timing for the drainage plans versus the platting action for the final plat? Within that 18 months, when does the drainage plan have to be done?
Right. The drainage plan is required upon redevelopment of the site. It's not connected to the plat at all. DOT's comment, the Alaska Department of Transportation Public Facilities requests drainage impact analysis, and we have a condition of approval that the property owner satisfy their concerns, provide a drainage impact analysis if one is needed. That's on condition number 7. Thank you. On page 8 of the packet.
Are there any additional questions of staff? Hearing and seeing none. The public testimony portion of this hearing is open. May we have the petitioner or the petitioner's representative come forward? Thank you. Thank you. Please state your name for the record, spell your last name, and would you like to, and let us know if you'd like to reserve time for rebuttal.
Mr. Chairman, board members, my name is Kenneth Lang, L-A-N-G, and I would reserve whatever time is remaining from my presentation for rebuttal. I'm going to do this a little differently than I had planned. I'd like to talk about the drainage first, since that seems to be a point of confusion. There is an existing, almost a stream that runs along the south property line from east to west. It's been there forever, and it's in a drainage easement that will be retained. The easement that we're requesting to be vacated in West 95th Avenue, there are two catch basins that drain out to this ditch. And with the redevelopment of the property, that will need to be relocated, although it'll still drain out to the ditch. It just would be in a different location. So that's why we need to get rid of this easement. For the time being, it will stay where it is. There are two issues that the owners would like you to consider this evening. The first is their desire to control access to 95th Avenue. The photo I passed out to you was taken yesterday and shows an abandoned car in the cul-de-sac. The license plates had been removed. There are also condoms and drug paraphernalia scattered around. In the past, I've personally seen furniture and old appliances abandoned there. By controlling access to 95th, the petitioner can solve this problem. The second issue is the driveway off King Street, which the municipal traffic engineer wants restricted. That's on the aerial photo I provided, and I drew a little arrow showing where it is at the north end of the property. The following is an email that I received on January 24th from Joseph Slattery after a conference call between him, his father, Mike Slattery, and myself. They are the property owners and they live in Seattle. At the time, the municipal traffic engineer was asking to have the northern driveway removed or gated. Joseph wrote, "The building has had the current configuration with the north curb cut and traffic flow since being built over 13 years ago. From that time, it has never been an issue at the site or on King Street, or traffic has never been an issue. Ferguson, the tenant, has a staff of approximately 80 personnel in their King Street facility. The facility serves both their commercial and retail businesses. The parking lot configuration is set up to accommodate the retail portion of the business, with the retail building entrance facing the King Street side of the property. As Ferguson receives numerous customers on a daily basis to their retail facility, it It is important to their business operation that they have a functional lot where customers can get in and out of the premises conveniently. Having a parking lot exit to the north allows the retail traffic and the commercial traffic, mostly tractor trailers, to be separate. The tractor trailers using 95th Avenue and not the northerly driveway entrance. This reduces the overall traffic congestion. Blocking off the north entrance is viewed as potentially damaging to both the commercial and retail operations. The current configuration is based on a build-to-suit lease agreement with the tenant and the landlord in place since 2001. At the time of the agreement, the configuration was approved by the municipality, the tenant, and the landlord. The proposed new configuration is viewed as less favorable to the tenant and their customers and would likely result in the tenant asking for a rent reduction / concession based on the newly proposed configuration. This is the end of his email. We believe we've met the standards for the vacation of 95th Avenue and the vacation of the drainage easement and for the width to depth ratio variance. We're in agreement with the staff recommendations, which begin on page 7 of your packet, with the following exceptions. Recommendation number 5, we believe, should be deleted entirely. I believe we have shown that the driveway is needed to maintain the current business functions. Recommendation number 7 concerns a drainage impact analysis. The owner has no immediate plans to make any changes to the property. This drainage analysis would normally be required as part of a building permit process and should be deferred until that time. Recommendation 9A should be reworded to have Tract A and B share a common access and allow the existing driveway on Tract A to remain for customer and emergency access. And that concludes my presentation. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. You have 3 minutes and 48 seconds for rebuttal. Are there any questions for the petitioner's representative, please? Mr. Walker.
95th Avenue is currently paved,
Yes.
and there's signs out there on 95th Avenue,
Yes, it has curb and gutter also.
and it's currently being used by the people at the Ferguson building.
Yes.
That would seem to indicate that there is current value in that roadway. How is it that there is no value for the city in having that roadway? You're asking to vacate the 95th Avenue, yes?
Yes. It would relieve the municipality of maintenance of the road. It would add about 1.5 acres of property to the tax rolls, and it would also, the petitioner would be able to control the access and solve the problem of trash disposal and illicit activities going on after business hours.
Do you have another question, Mr. Walker? Are there any additional questions, petitioner's representative? Mr. Fuller.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. So why does the city not want to allow you to have multiple access points on 17 acres, 500 foot of frontage? I don't quite understand that.
It was a condition of the original plat. I came before this board in 2001 to have the condition modified, and the board at that time agreed that it could be modified and the additional access allowed. It's the traffic engineer's opinion that because King Street is a collector street, driveways should be kept to a minimum.
Right. Well, you pay hundreds of thousands a year in taxes, I suspect, on these properties.
Yes.
And the value is there because of the exposure and the access that's available.
That's correct.
I would think that you definitely need protection from limiting your access. This is I-2, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for the petitioner's representative? Thank you. Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify on this issue, on this case? Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing none, would you like to use your rebuttal time?
Not unless you have any additional questions.
Yes, we do. Although it's not going to be rebuttal time, it's just going to be questions. Mr. Cole.
This is for staff, through the staff. Can you address the issue of limiting access on the east side? I mean, it seems like it's been in place for some time. I'm not sure. Why are we changing it now?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Cole. Everything that Mr. Lang stated is correct. The original plat prohibited any accesses from these parcels directly onto King Street. They wanted all of the driveways to go to East 95th Circle. Now that they're requesting to vacate East 95th Circle, the traffic engineer wanted both tracks to be limited to essentially the same thing, just East 95th Circle, that location to be their driveway, even though the street's going away, just the driveway. I forgot to mention that Mr. Lang was correct that in 2001, after they'd, I guess, during the construction of a large warehouse building, the fire department needed another access, a driveway directly from King Street in order to get around the warehouse building. And so the Platting Board approved the driveway that exists now on the northern part of that parcel. So you have East 95th Circle, you have the existing driveway. It's been there for 13 years. The traffic engineer has to go by the adopted policy of the municipality, and the official streets and highways plan identifies King Street as a class A1 collector street, and the OSNHP says direct driveway access onto collectors is discouraged, and so that's where that comes from. The traffic engineer recognizes that the access is needed for fire, but wants to take it away for the public to use it. If I could just take the moment to comment on a couple of the things. If the Platting Board agreed with the petitioner, then and decided that the driveway should remain, they would do as Mr. Lang had said, which is to delete Condition 5 and to make a small change to the plat note 9A on page 8 of your packets. The last 4 words in the plat note are for emergency vehicles only. You would just strike that. So that's how you would make a decision that decided to keep the driveway. That's how you would do it cleanly. If you prefer to go with the traffic engineer's analysis and our department's recommendation, then you'd leave everything as is. The petitioner also requested that Condition 6 be eliminated. 7. Resolve with DOT the need for a drainage impact analysis. I must admit that staff was surprised by DOT's request for this drainage impact analysis as well. We carried it forward as a condition of approval. Basically, DOT said we needed a drainage impact analysis. Staff added the word resolve with DOT the need for the drainage impact analysis, to give the owner the ability to go to them and ask, what the heck is this about? It really was a surprise. I don't think I've seen them ask for this before, but staff has no objection to deleting that condition number 7. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
No, thank you. That's all my questions.
Any additional questions of staff for the petitioner's representative?
I do. Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Story and then Mr. Fuller.
I have a question for staff. On note 7, resolve with DOT the need for a drainage impact analysis. I personally don't feel comfortable taking that note completely off it. DOT had a concern about the drainage there. It's up to the petitioner to talk to them about resolving that issue. So just striking that out doesn't seem appropriate to me.
Thank you. And Mr. Fuller.
Oh, for the staff, through the chair, the 9A, if we were to delete 5, and then 9A, you said just the last 4 words?
Through the chair, Mr. Fuller, that's exactly right.
And that would allow 2 accesses to that?
Yeah, what that would do is allow the existing driveway to remain, allow the vacation of the street, and it would limit both tracts of land to just these 2 current driveways.
Thank you.
Did you have, Mr. Fuller, did you have another question? Mr. Walker.
A question for staff. If we weren't going to approve the vacation of East 95th, what would you, how would that change your recommendation?
Well, that would take a moment to consider. The department is recommending approval for the vacation of the right-of-way. The traffic engineer, all the reviewing agencies agree. So our recommendation is that the street be vacated. If it were to not be vacated, then the amount of variance would become greater, but essentially it would still be a variance from the depth to width. Currently, each of these tracks without East 95th Circle, they almost meet the 3-to-1 depth to width ratio. It's so close. But if you were to not vacate the street, then they'd be narrower. I think that we'd still recommend approval of the variance from depth to width. They just would be narrower tracks, but they're so large it really is just sort of a configuration. It's not a big deal. I guess it would just make narrower lots, so that's all that would change. You would deny the vacation and do everything else the same.
Well, except that...
the plat notes, yeah.
You wouldn't need to worry about the driveway anymore because you'd still have all of 95th Avenue to feed both of those 2 lots.
Yeah, you're right. Through the chair, Mr. Walker, that's correct. I think that 9A you'd probably delete 9A, and you would still have to figure out, or you would delete 6, and you would make a call on whether or not to keep 5. That would still remain. I hope that helps. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I have a question, Mr. Lang. On item number 7, resolve with DOT the need for drainage impact analysis. I'm somewhat familiar with this property, and I'm looking at this development or this change would probably not increase the impervious area. It would not increase or decrease the impervious area. So the drainage would not be directed necessarily south. It may be directed to the west. Do you think that if we don't delete this, that you could resolve this with the DOT?
Yes, it can be done. Yes, and as you mentioned, the probably 90% of the entire parcel is either building or paved at the present time. So whatever they do probably won't change it that much. The most recent impacts to drainage were created by DOT when they constructed C Street. I don't believe my clients have done any work on their property since C Street was constructed, and the cul-de-sac shortened as a result. But I can live with number 7 staying as a condition. So as long as it says resolve, we can do that.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions for staff or the petitioner's representative? Thank you. The public testimony portion of this hearing is closed, and the matter now rests with the board. And we have I'd like to request 3 positive motions, one for approval of the vacation, one for the variance, and the other for approval of the plat. Let's start with the vacation of East 95th. Mr. Cole. Ms. Enoch seconds that. Mr. Cole, will you state your motion, please?
In the case of S12045-1 John Wayne subdivision, I would move to approve the vacation of the East 95th Court between C Street and King Street, and the vacation of the 30-foot wide drainage easement running south from 95th Court, subject to the recording of a final plat within 18 months.
Thank you. And Ms. Enoch seconds. Mr. Cole, would you speak to your motion, please?
Well, in addition to staff recommending the approval of that vacation, the evidence appears to be that would support this. There's practical reasons for vacating this, and the vacation and of the 30-foot easement, it doesn't seem practical at this point, but so I'll be voting for that.
Thank you. Is there any additional comments or findings? Mr. Walker.
I intend to oppose the motion. In reviewing the vacation request, I believe that the burden of proof lies entirely with the petitioner, that there is no value in the area being vacated. I see here before us a picture of a roadway with driveway from Ferguson's Place. There was comments that there were 80 people that service Ferguson there. They are using that driveway. They're using the road there. You can also see a picture of a truck, a large truck that's parked in the area. That is a publicly improved roadway that has value, and the fact that they could raise taxes by vacating their interest in the road doesn't mean that the road itself doesn't have value. And I don't think that the movement has carried their burden of proof on that issue.
Thank you. Is there any additional discussion? Any additional findings? Since there is Mr. Story.
Yes, I also intend to oppose the request based on not meeting the requirements for a vacation, specifically for traffic engineering and their comments that are shown on pages 78 and 79. Their comments on there indicate that they don't see. It has not been stated that the right-of-way is in surplus to the current and future needs, and this is coming from traffic. It doesn't improve the circulation. It doesn't, in my opinion, meet the criteria for vacation of the easement or the right-of-way.
Thank you. And Mr. Fuller.
Regarding the vacation, I tend to support it. I tend to see that this is never going to be allowed to access C Street, so the petitioner The road probably was produced from their own coffers to build and to divide and to use, and subsequently they're reconfiguring how they're going to use their property. Like I say, 95th is never going to go allowed to go through to C Street, and if they're the sole user of all the property, there's really no need for the road to be maintained or retained by the city. So I think it makes all kind of sense that the property goes back to the landowner and the road goes back to the builder of it, and they're allowed to pursue their business ventures.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments? Ms. Enix.
I just wanted to state that I agree with Mr. Fuller's comment regarding the fact that they will never connect to C Street, and that the lots are going to be 2 lots used primarily for just 2 businesses versus 9 different potential businesses that might have needed access from that road. So I tend to support the approval of the vacation.
Thank you. And are there additional comments or findings? I'll speak. I would support this motion to vacate 95th, but I would only do it if we were to modify the request as discussed in the for item number 5 would be deleted, and the last 4 words in item number 9 for emergency vehicle access. And I know we're not voting on this right now, but it seems like if we vacate 95th, another entrance is necessary for the southern property. So that would be, if we go that way, that's how I would do this. So, no additional comments, no additional findings, and there is opposition, so we're going to vote. A yes vote votes to vacate, and a no vote votes to not vacate. And there are 6 votes in favor, 2 against, and so the motion carries. 5 in favor, excuse me. Thank you. And I have another positive motion in approval of the request for variance from AMC 2180.300D design standards of lot dimensions. I am requesting a positive motion. Mr. Cole and Mr. Full is going to second.
Again, in the case of S12045-1 John Wayne subdivision, I'd moved for the approval of the request for a variance from AMC 2180 300D design standards lot dimensions to allow tracks A and B to have widths that are less than 1/3 the depths, subject to the recording of a final plat within 18 months.
Thank you. And would you speak to your motion, please?
Well, again, in addition to the fact that staff has requested it and there has been limited to no opposition, I would find that the evidence supporting a variance request has been met. There are special circumstances or conditions affecting the property that the strict application of provisions of the subdivision regulations would clearly be impractical, unreasonable, or undesirable in the general public. This is a consolidation of 9 lots into 2, and there's a requirement for a variance under those circumstances, but it does sound like it's very close to being met anyway, and so I would find that this has been met. The granting of the specific variance will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property in the area in which said property is situated. I can't see what evidence could possibly be
out there that it would be detrimental to reduce this from 9 to 2. I mean, to have this variance for the width. The third subject is the variance will not have the effect of nullifying the intent and purpose of the subdivision regulations or the comprehensive plan of the municipality. Again, I find that these standard is met by the reduction from 9 to 2, and that undue hardship would result from the strict compliance with specific provisions or requirements of the subdivision regulations. Again, I find that that standard is met under the facts in front of us, so I would vote for this.
Thank you. Is there additional findings or discussion? Is there opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. I would like a positive motion for approval of plat 18 months with conditions. Mr. Cole, and Mr. King is going to second.
In case of S12045-1 John Wayne subdivision, I'd move to approve the plat for approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to the conditions set forth at page 7 and 8, specifically subdivision C1, C2, C3, C4, C6, C7, C8, and as to C9, all of that with the modification of Section A that says track A and B are limited in a single driveway to King Street. An additional driveway is permitted from track A to King Street, period. Remaining B, C, and D in Section 9 are part of my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. And would you speak to your motion, please?
Well, I've listened to all the testimony, listened to staff. I understand traffic's concern. I have a hard time if there's been an approval in existence for 12 or 13 years coming back and then saying we're going to take that approval away, but we're going to make it so that you have to keep it there because we want someday maybe to drive a fire truck through there. That's why I have eliminated number 5 and the portion of number 9. It appeared to me that the concession from the petitioner was that he would accept the need to resolve the drainage impact analysis with the DOT. I think that was a concern of the chair, and so under those circumstances, I believe the facts support this motion.
Thank you. Are there additional comments? Mr. Walker.
I agree that the driveway that's been in existence and has been there can be continued. I also, in looking at the rules, note that driveways onto feeder roads are supposed to be limited but not eliminated, and I think that one driveway for each of these lots would be reasonable. At a minimum, it would be reasonable based on the size of the lots.
Thank you. Any additional comments or findings? I will add one. I agree with Mr. Walker in that if 95th Avenue is vacated, which we just voted for, and so there's already been access onto King Street via 95th, if access is now going to be also granted for the other lot, it seems to me that there's no detrimental impact to the municipality or to the fire hazards, so I intend to support this motion. Is there any additional discussion, findings? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. We're going to take a 7-minute recess, and we're going to return at 8:28. Everybody else is welcome to have a recess as well. Public hearing will resume. The next case is case number S12043-1, Winter Park Subdivision and Chester Subdivision. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This preliminary plat is a request for subdivision of 5 lots into 5 different lots with vacation of Switzerland Way and a portion of a 10-foot telecom and electric easement. The intent of the plat in action is to re-subdivide the newly platted Winter Park subdivision, lots 1 and 2, into 2 larger lots by adding the north 15 feet of lots 11B and 11C. The existing right-of-way is Switzerland Way and the northerly 5 feet of lot 10A1 of Chester subdivision. The proposed subdivision abuts North 19th Avenue to the north, Spenard Road to the west, and an unnamed alleyway to the east. The vacation request, the petitioner is proposing to vacate Switzerland Way and a portion of a 10-foot telecommunications and electrical easement located on the existing Lot 2. The vacation requests have been reviewed and found to conform to the municipal vacation policy. Staff finds that right-of-way is in excess to municipal needs and has no objections to the right-of-way vacation. The area of Switzerland Way will be incorporated entirely within the new Lot 1A of Winter Park. Utility reviewing agencies have expressed no objection to the 10-foot teen easement vacation request. Staff would like to recommend approval subject to recording a suitable plat within 18 months and resolving the conditions found on page 7 of staff packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Mr. Walker.
Do you have any comments on page 57, Elizabeth Greer's public comment?
I spoke with Mrs. Greer. I talked to her. Let's see here. Her parcel doesn't abut the parcel that she's referring to in escrow. She basically wanted to look at, when I spoke to her, if we turn to page 13 of the staff packet, I believe her parcel there is off Solstice, and it was, she wanted to access on her bike to get to Spenard, to Westchester Park, and she wanted to go through the easement there onto Switzerland Way. I basically kind of went over easements with her and told her that would be a civil matter between the property owner and her.
How about on page 55, Bonnie Jacks?
Okay, I believe I spoke with her as well. She was confused a little bit about the vacation of the right-of-way. She just wanted to make sure that her alleyway there was not going to be reduced, and it is not. She is located off 19th Avenue. She's the corner property on the alleyway.
Okay. Thank you.
No, thanks.
Any additional questions of staff? May we have the petitioner's representative please state your name for the record?
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Chairman. My name is Tony Hoffman. I work for the Boutte Company, and we are representing the petitioner tonight.
Do you want to reserve any time for rebuttal?
I'd like to reserve whatever time I have left.
Thank you. Proceed.
The first thing we'd like to state is we appreciate staff's disclosures tonight. Anchorage is a small place, and it's hard to go anywhere or do any business without bumping into someone or having some dealings with them. So that said, a little bit of history on the property and the platting processes. This is the second plat that we've done for Mr. Green in the last 3 years. Ultimately, the goal is to combine these last 2 lots into a single lot to create a very viable R2M development size lot with that process will be undertaken in a separate site planning process under the new code in the future. Right now, we're just the process that we're undergoing now is combining some agreements Mr. Green has had with the property to the west and the 2 lots to the south and all the owners of the properties to the south, and perfecting those agreements on the plat and combining those into the areas that we're talking about in the two new lots. The vacation of Switzerland Way is something that's been in discussions with the city for quite a few years. Actually, the property owner to the west along Spinar Drive thought that it had been vacated years ago, since he'd never seen a municipal maintenance truck or any municipal activities in the right-of-way. So this vacation, we feel, is well in compliance, and the road is in excess of any potential use. It's unbuildable. It's on a side slope. There's never been any sort of municipal activity in it. We've met with traffic and discussed any concerns they had, and I think they feel that we have addressed all their comments, as well as staff's comments about the excess. With that said, we agree with all of the conditions as written, and we appreciate staff's comments.
Thank you. You have 7 minutes, 52 seconds for rebuttal. Are there questions of the petitioner's representative tonight? Thank you. Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify tonight? Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing none, Mr. Hoffman, would you like to use any of your rebuttal time? No. Mr. Hoffman gestures no, states no. The public testimony portion of the hearing is now closed, and the matter rests with the board. I would like to request a positive motion for approval of the request to vacate Switzerland Way and a portion of a 10-foot telephone and electric easement. Mr. Story, and Mr. Walker is going to second. Mr. Story, would you state your motion, please?
In case S-12043-1, Winter Park and Chester subdivision, I move for the approval of the request to vacate Switzerland Way and a portion of a 10-foot T&E easement, subject to recording a suitable plat within 18 months of a preliminary approval.
Thank you. And would you speak to your motion, please?
Based on I believe that the standards are addressed in the staff report. I believe that there's supporting information also contained on page 33. I also believe that the vacation is supported by traffic engineering on page 36, and they had no objection to the vacation.
Thank you. Are there any additional findings? Mr. Walker.
I'd like also make the findings of the portion of the area being vacated is sloping at a greater than 35%. Road construction to municipal standards is impracticable in the area. It dead ends into a property line to a single lot, and only one residence uses the road. It hasn't been serviced by the city.
Thank you. Any additional findings or discussion? I'm going to support this motion. I also find that the right-of-way is in excess. I agree with staff that the right-of-way is in excess of municipal needs. Sir, any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. May I have a positive motion for approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions, please? Mr. Walker and Mr. Kange is going to second. Mr. Walker, will you state your motion, please?
As the case S-12043-1, Winter Park and Chester subdivision, I move to approve the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 7 on page 7 of staff notes.
Thank you. And would you speak to your motion, please?
I believe that the conditions of approval of the plat have been accepted by the petitioner, and that they meet the standards for the municipal code.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments or discussion? Hearing and seeing none, is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. The next case is S12044-1, Grayhawk subdivision. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This preliminary plat is a request for subdivision of one lot into 23 lots with a variance from AMC 2180-240 design standards, length of cul-de-sacs, to allow Grayhawk Circle to extend 600 feet, to exceed the 600 feet maximum in an urban area, and the vacation of the south 3 feet of a 33-foot roadway reserve, U.S. Patent 1137119. The petitioner is requesting a 60-month approval and has provided a phasing plan which would allow proposed Lot 6 to be further subdivided into Lots 6A and 6B in the future. Petition site is zoned R1, single-family residential district. Each lot within the proposed subdivision will meet the minimum lot size and lot width required by the R1 zoning. Sandy Place is currently constructed to municipal standards but lacks the full width and curb and gutter on the development side. The petitioner is required to construct to municipal standards a 24-foot wide paved half-street with type 2 rolled curb and gutter on the subdivision side of Sandy Place. Grayhawk Circle is currently undeveloped. The petitioner is required to construct to municipal standards a 33-foot wide paved street section, back of curb to back of curb, including type 2 rolled curb and gutter. In addition, the applicant shall construct a residential cul-de-sac having a 41.5-foot radius to the back of curb at the terminus of Grayhawk Circle that meets the MOA standards. The petitioner is also requesting a variance from AMC 2180-240 design standards for cul-de-sac length. Staff has reviewed the petitioner's request and found that the 4 standards for granting a variance have been met. I'll go through each standard separately. Standard number 1, staff feels that this standard has been met. With the proposed plat, the petitioner is matching the cul-de-sac length for Sandy Circle to the west. All adjacent property is developed and does not allow for a potential roadway connection. Thus, the only option for the petitioner is a cul-de-sac. To develop the property reasonably as R1 single-family lots, this variance is required. Standard number 2, staff feels that this standard is met. The petitioner is simply matching the dedication of Sandy Circle to the west. While better connectivity would be beneficial to the public welfare, there is no possibility of connectivity due to the surrounding development patterns. Standard number 3, staff finds this standard to be met. Granting of the requested variance will not have the effect of nullifying the intent and purpose of the subdivision regulations because it exceeds the maximum allowable length by only 65 feet. The proposed density of this subdivision is approximately 4.6 dwelling units per acre, and this complies with the 1982 Anchorage Bowl Comprehensive Plan, which designates this area as being appropriate for 3 to 6 dwelling units per acre. Standard number 4, staff finds this standard to be met. Given the development of the adjacent properties, this requested variance for cul-de-sac length appears to be justified in that no suitable connection or connectivity can be provided to adjacent properties. The petitioner is also requesting a vacation of the south 3 feet of the 33-foot roadway reserve. This vacation request has been reviewed and found to conform to the municipal vacation policy. The property adjoins East 80th Avenue to the north, which is a local road. Local roads require a minimum 60-foot right-of-way. With this plat, the petitioner is dedicating 30 feet of the 33-foot Patton roadway reserve to right-of-way. This dedication, along with the existing 33-foot dedication on the north side, provides for the minimum right-of-way width necessary for this roadway. Generally, reviewing agencies had either no comment or no objection to this vacation of the 3-foot remainder of that 33-foot roadway reserve. Access to adjoining property is provided by dedicated and constructed rights-of-way. Traffic circulation will not be adversely affected by this vacation. The 3-foot remainder of the 33-foot roadway reserve appears to be excess to municipal need, and staff would recommend approval of that vacation. That being said, staff recommends approval of the variance, approval of the vacation, approval of the phasing plan, and approval of the plat for 60 months subject to conditions 1 through 11 on pages 8 and 9 of your staff packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions for staff? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to open the public testimony portion with the petitioner's representative. Please step forward, state your name, spell your last name for the record, and let us know if you'd like to reserve time for rebuttal.
Thank you. I'd like to reserve any remaining time I have. My name is Tom Dreyer, and I'm with the S4 group, and I represent Holtquist Construction tonight, in this case. And with me tonight, I have Cody Holtquist, the petitioner, and for your engineering type questions, I have Mr. Dave Grenier and Brandon Marcotte with Triad Engineering. This is a pretty fairly simple 23-lot R1 subdivision, completely surrounded by other subdivisions. The variance for our cul-de-sac length is just basically just matching Sandy Circle to the west there. It's the kind of the most sensible design we could come up with, considering the parameters here. The vacation request is just the remaining 3 feet that's left over on East 80th Avenue, because the old right-of-ways were always 33 feet, and now the common right-of-way is 30-foot half width. Our phasing plan shown on your packet page 13 is just so that the people that live there now can live there for a while longer, and then at a future date, then that lot will probably get subdivided into 2. So this just kind of makes it all easier and more compact and economical for that to happen. We presented Greyhawk to the Abbott Loop Community Council on January 30th. And we concur with all the department recommendations listed on pages 8, 9, and 10 of your packet. And we ask for your approval for Greyhawk subdivision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dreyer. Are there questions of the petitioner's representative? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify? Anyone at all? There are two. Would you come forward and sit in one of the first 2 rows so we can expedite the testimony, please? Anybody who's wishing to testify, come and sit in the first 2 rows. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Ryan Norkley. My letter got in late. I waited to go to the Abbott Loop Community Council meeting. Did you get my letter and read it?
Yes, we did.
Okay. I don't have enough time to go over all of those concerns, but with all the cases I've heard before you, there's drainage concerns, and that's our biggest concern as neighbors to this development. There's going to be a major reduction in the amount of ground that's going to be able to suck up water. There's no wetlands in this area. The Anchorage Community Wetlands Management Plan identifies these wetlands. I see in your packet that they did some test pits on July 12th, and they didn't indicate any water. I remember July 12th, there was fire danger. It was about as dry as the times we've had. But in August and September, my sump pump runs near constantly. I know that this group is basically a rubber stamp for any development that gets presented to it, so I assume this is going to be approved. But if that's the case, please require some plot notes to have a minimum of a 25-inch native vegetation buffer around the perimeter to mitigate these issues from drainage into our backyards. The amount of development, 23 individual residences, is going to end up having a significant amount of reduced area for infiltration and allowing the sponge-like effect of wetlands to absorb that water. So any sort of drainage requirements that should go on this plot would be to have all water drain towards, well, I don't know what the name of this road is that they're saying, Greyhawk Circle, and no drainage patterns to the perimeter of this existing lot. The south side of East Aia currently doesn't have any existing pedestrian facilities, so I'm concerned that 23 additional residences are going to increase the danger for pedestrian vehicle accidents. The previous planners, I believe, made a mistake in approving what this particular road is mimicking on Sandy Circle with the variance from Anchorage Municipal Code 2180240. I think that those length requirements are important to maintain and not giving an extension to that, namely in emergency response situations with fire trucks trying to gain access. You're putting more residences at risk by increasing the length of this road. I know a lot of my neighbors were... Sorry.
I'm sorry, you'll have to summarize. My microphone was off.
On January 30, 2014, I did go to the Abbott Loop Community Council meeting, and there was many of my neighbors there. I believe I can draw conclusions and consensus regarding many of my neighbors' concerns. We're all opposed to this development for many of the drainage reasons I've cited herein. And also, we're unfamiliar with the avenues to voice our opposition to this proposed development, and we feel companies involved with this proposal know the system far better than us. Because of this, we feel disadvantaged in our effort to oppose it.
Your time has elapsed. Unless you're going to do a short 15-second summary, your time is up.
Right. For drainage concerns, I believe that you should deny this request for this amount of additional residences. And I could go on. You've got my letter, but 3 minutes is all I get. Sorry.
Correct. Thank you. Are there any questions? Any questions at all? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dan Boland. I live just to the south of this development in Kip Court. I've spoke with many of my neighbors in Kip Court, and all of us agree that we have water drainage problems. My sump pump kicks on about mid-May and doesn't shut off until well after freeze up most years. And if my sump pump doesn't kick on, I get about 2 feet of water there. I see in this article here in this packet that they did 3 test holes on July 12th. July 12th is probably the driest day of the year in that area. And I suggest if they want to do some real testing, that it be performed in mid-May, 1st of June, again at the end of August, mid-September, and October to get a true level picture of what the water table is in that area. That's my main concern is the water, and also I have some concerns also about vacating the 3 feet on the north side of that right-of-way that they were talking about. I drive through there once in a while, and it is pretty narrow when people come down off that hill heading to the driving west off of I forget what the other part. What's the name of that street? On the west side, and it's I don't know if it's a good idea to vacate that 3 feet, but that's it. That's mainly my concerns is the water drainage.
Thank you. Can you spell your last name for the record, please?
B-O-L-A-N-D.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Boland? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chris Heikela. Last name is spelled H-E-I-K-K-I-L-A. And I'm a homeowner on the west side of this proposed development in Sandy Circle. And since I've been there, I've had issues with drainage, even with the green belt directly behind me where all the trees are at. My main concern is if all that is cut down, It's just going to increase the water flow into my crawl space, into my backyard. It seems like a natural flow from that hill to go right into my property. And with all that taken out, it's only going to increase. And I'd like some kind of guarantee that if this is going to happen, this size of a development, that there's a drainage system going to be put into place so my property doesn't go down in value and I have flooding constantly, more than I already have. I have 2 sump pumps in my crawl space, and just like the previous 2 individuals who testified, it runs almost nonstop, especially in the fall and spring. It runs till October until the ground freezes up, and I still haven't had my crawl space dry out in the 8 years that I've been in this house. So that's my main concern, is the water drainage and also the increased traffic too. Like the other 2 gentlemen mentioned, I echo their sentiments as well with their concerns, in addition to the drainage problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Fuller. Wait, we have a question for you.
Question, please. Why do you believe that adding 23 lots here is going to increase the flow in your sump pump? Wouldn't you have 23 additional sump pumps running to move that water instead of it all coming to you?
Well, with those trees that are back there, they soak up the water that's on that hill. I'm at the bottom of a hill, and it'll naturally flow down. And so people watering their lawns or washing their cars is going to create more water to flow down in my direction. And that's my main concern with that.
They're all going to have sump pumps also.
That's true. They'll take care of their crawl space, but not mine.
Well, it should.
I already have 2 in there. I already have natural flow coming into my backyard and into my crawl space.
So it won't change the natural flow at all.
Pardon?
It won't change the natural flow at all.
How so? If there's more water coming off that hill, rather than being soaked up by soaked up by the trees and the vegetation that's there.
But you're talking about underground water, not surface water.
The surface water as well, from the runoff and the snow melt.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify tonight? Anyone at all? Mr. Dreyer, you have 8 minutes and 22 seconds left for rebuttal.
How much is that? Sorry.
8 minutes and 22 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Grenier will address some of the drainage issues.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my name is David Grenier with Triad Engineering. And as far as the drainage goes, I'd like to draw your attention to page 12 of the packet. First off, on the left-hand side, that it gives you the topographic features that we're working with. Basically, from the southeast corner to the northwest corner, we have approximately 30 feet of elevation. So the site will be draining from the south in the cul-de-sac over to Sandy Circle. And there is an existing storm drain system within Sandy Circle that we'll be tying into, and the drainage will then end up in the storm drain system in Spruce Street, which is to the west. As far as along the west boundary of our parcel, we'll be placing a swale so that the water will not be draining towards the west over to the existing residents. The other thing that will be occurring is on the drainage or the grading of each of these lots. The grades will, the driveways and the lot grading will be towards the cul-de-sac and then to the north. So there will be a full storm drain system installed, which is different than these surrounding subdivisions. And so there will be footing drains for each of the crawl spaces that will drain into the storm drain system, out to Sandy Circle, and then over to the existing municipal storm drain line in Spruce. So we feel with those improvements, we will adequately be addressing the issues.
Any additional rebuttal?
I just one small detail is that at that Abbott Loop Community Council, there's probably about 300 people there, 250, 300 people, and there's maybe 2 or 3 the people that spoke that were concerned about the drainage issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions of the petitioner's representative? Mr. Story.
It's been kind of a common theme throughout my time here on the Platting Board on drainage. And again, what do the homeowners have assurance of the drainage will be taken care of? It sounds like you've already done a drainage analysis of the property, or?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Torrey, yes, there will be an in-depth drainage analysis that is done. Per the Design Criteria Manual, Chapter 2, this is a very extensive document that requires significant effort and design features that put into it. It addresses not only the flow in the pre-development stage, but the post-development stage. You also address the impervious surface. You're not to increase the flow off of this property without addressing it. And so the municipality's process through the stormwater management section is very extensive. Much more so than these older subdivisions. In fact, back then,
So have you been
really
working
didn't.
on that now, or it sounds like you've already done some preliminary?
We've done our site investigation from the standpoint of where we can take the drainage, and we've worked up the concepts. Once we have approval, then we go into the next phase, which is the full design phase.
So have you also done the groundwater hydrology analysis?
That's ongoing. The first tests were done, and now basically we've got to follow up on those. As far as that spring breakup is when the high water table is measured, and that usually happens April.
So another question, when are these documents due? I mean, the plat is good for 18 months, but when are the drainage analysis required by the muni or part of this project?
When the construction plans are submitted, it is part of the design process. You submit your designs for the storm drain, the streets, the grading plan, and those are all integrated and tied back to the drainage report.
And when do you anticipate that happening?
That process is a 2 to 3 month process once you get your plat approved.
Thank you.
Any additional questions of the petitioner's representative? Mr. Walker.
You're asking for a variance from the code provision to have a longer cul-de-sac. How many extra feet length is that?
65 feet.
65 feet. And there are other cul-de-sacs in the area that have but 50% more houses along that same run of cul-de-sac?
That have 50% more houses?
Yeah, you're looking at putting just 22 lots.
Oh, correct.
So
Yeah.
Not all cul-de-sac lengths sort of carry the same. Carry the same burden.
Correct. Yeah, that's true.
The number of traffic that you would expect in the area.
Yeah, that's true. You could have the same length of cul-de-sac with 30-foot wide lots or 35 foot.
Like over on Stratton Circle where they've got 40 of them on that cul-de-sac.
Yes.
Now, effectively, you guys will be using the same feeder road as you're using for Sandy Circle?
We're using Sandy Place.
Well,
yeah, and
okay.
Yeah, where we meet in with Sandy Circle where it turns the corner and then heads north, and then it's renamed Sandy Place.
Thank you.
Mr. Story.
Where do you come up with you say it was 665 feet? 60.
Yeah, the maximum allowed in this particular zone is 600. And then if you go to other zonings, it goes up to 750 and 900.
Yeah, I see.
And so we're 600.
So that's all the way from East 80th Avenue down to the end of the cul-de-sac?
I'm sorry?
So the cul-de-sac starts at the intersection of Sandy and 80th? Is that right?
Yeah, you take it all the way up to 80th. Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions? I have a couple on the drainage. What was the intent with the drainage investigation that was done on July 10th, I believe it was brought up? Is that relating to the wetlands, the existing wetlands, or is that relating to the drainage that you're trying to mitigate?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not quite sure of the question.
There was, Mr. Grenier, there were several people who testified tonight that there was test pits put in July at the driest part of the season. Is that part of your groundwater investigation, or is that part of your wetland investigation?
The date that those test pits were dug.
Go ahead. In July.
Yeah, it was the date that the test pits were dug in July.
And the purpose of those test pits is that to determine the drainage, or is that to determine the wetland conditions, or if wetland conditions exist?
They were taken to define what kind of soils are there.
Okay.
And then in the spring here, we have to do further investigations, and we have to do wetland delineations and things like that. So there'll be quite a bit more testing done in the spring.
So there will be more testing done
Correct.
This year?
Yes, that's the normal process.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the other reason for those is to determine what types of soils we need for road design, what type of street section is required. So it's used for a multiple of reasons. For the hydrology, for the road designs, for the storm drainage, and for wetlands.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
The public testimony portion of the hearing is now closed. The matter rests with the board. And Mr. Cole, I know you need to leave. Okay, we'll finish this one. So in this case, may I have a positive motion, please, for the variance? Thank you. Mr. Walker, and Mr. Fuller is going to second. Mr. Walker, would you state your motion, please?
As the case S12044-1, Grayhawk subdivision, I move for the approval of the request for variance from AMC 21.80.240, the design standard cul-de-sacs, to allow a cul-de-sac at Grayhawk Circle in an urban area to exceed 600 feet in length, subject to a recordable suitable plat.
Thank you. And Mr. Fuller seconds. Would you speak to your motion, please, Mr. Walker?
The variance that's being requested is only 66 feet. It's not particularly long, and the number of units that are being put in on this particular cul-de-sac is low in comparison to other ones in the area. The burden, I think, is not excessive, and based on how the land has been developed and its ability to be developed and the lack of access to a through roadway makes this the only practical way to use the R1 property in the area.
Thank you. Are there any additional findings or comments? I'm going to support this motion, and part of the reason is that there are special conditions that exist that make strict application difficult, and I'm going to agree with staff's findings that the development does not allow for a potential additional potential roadway connection, that the granting of this variance is not going to be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other properties, and that it meets the standard by only exceeding the allowable limit length by 65 feet, which Mr. Walker discussed, and it would create an undue hardship for this property if the petitioner had to do strict compliance, and for those reasons I'm going to support this. Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. May I have a positive motion for a vacation request? Please. Mr. Fuller. And Mr. Keynes is going to second your motion.
I move to approve the vacation request in case S12044-1, vacation of the south 3 feet of the 33-foot roadway reserve, U.S. Patent 1137119, subject to recording a suitable plat.
Thank you. And Mr. Fuller, will you speak to your motion, please?
Yes, I will support this motion. It's adequate to meet the minimum road requirements, giving up the 3 feet in exchange for not having additional driveways on that section of 80th Avenue would be beneficial for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Cole.
Well, I intend to support this motion, and I think it's unfortunate that two of the people who came up and testified against this have decided to walk out before listening to any of our comments or what we had to say. We, unlike the comment that was made that we rubber stamp, we have a certain responsibility on this board to see if things are met. We can't make everybody happy. We don't just look over comments. We do try to take into consideration the issues that people have. But in this particular case, when I look at the neighborhood in which this particular area is in, it is completely surrounded by multi-unit developments. And it's completely surrounded. And so to expect that a developer or someone who owns that property cannot develop it because you want it for a place for moose to go through or things like that, you should move next to a park or move next to a place that is a refuge. And so I'm a little bit frustrated when someone comes in and says these things and then walks out without even listening to why we make the decisions that we make. The drainage issues are big issues. I'm not as familiar with it as some of the other members, and I rely upon the other members to bring up issues related to drainage. It's a complex issue. But we also rely upon the staff to put in conditions that will satisfy this. Plus, I know on top of that, as a lawyer, that there are certain civil remedies that exist to neighbors who get runoff from their neighbors. So there are a lot of reasons why we make the decisions that we do, and we don't do it cavalierly just to rubber stamp anybody. I have to say, you probably hit the wrong nerve if you come up here and say that in your comments in the future.
Thank you. And are there any more comments or findings for this motion for variance? I am going to support this, and I'm going to somewhat echo Mr. Fuller's discussion in that this staff has found that this does provide the minimum right-of-way necessary for the roadway, and that's the reason I'm going to support this. Is there any further discussion? Is there any opposition to this motion? This motion carries. Thank you, and I would like another motion for approval of the phasing plan, please. Mr. Walker. Mr. Keynes is going to second this. Mr. Walker, will you state your motion, please?
As to case S12044-1, Grayhawk subdivision, I move to approve the phasing plan.
Thank you, and will you speak to your motion, please?
I find that the phasing plan would be appropriate in this case to allow the existing homeowner in the area to continue living in their place and allow that lot to be subdivided later into 2 lots. I think it's identified as Lot 6.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. May I have a positive motion for approval of the plat for 60 months subject to conditions, please? And Mr. Walker.
As to case S12044-1 Grayhawk subdivision, I move for approval of the plat for 60 months subject to conditions 1 through 11 found on page 8 and 9 of staff notes.
Thank you. And Mr. Kane seconds. Mr. Walker, will you speak to your motion, please?
I find that the petitioner agrees with the conditions as set out by the department, that the provisions meet the municipal standards, and they should be approved.
Thank you. Are there additional comments or additional findings? Discussion? Ms. Enix.
I just wanted to state, primarily for the one person left here from the neighborhood, that if you would note what they're proposing to approve has conditions listed as the condition of approval, that specifically 10A, B, C, D, the all lots within the subdivision shall conform to the elevation and drainage patterns shown on the grading plan and have to be approved by the municipality. They shall not raise, lower, or regrade the property in such a manner that will alter the drainage patterns. They shall not, property owners and utilities shall not obstruct, impede, or alter approved draining swales in any which way that adversely impacts properties or right-of-way. I just felt it was important to mention that there are a lot of conditions here that they're going to have to meet before it goes forward, and based on the testimony they gave, they're going to do a spring test for wetlands to determine how to create the plan so it won't further impact your property. So I just wanted to make sure that you are aware that what they're approving now, condition 1 through 10, has a lot of stipulations that need to be met before it can be approved, and you might want to just kind of follow up as it progresses that these conditions are met, and that's what we're approving.
Thank you. And I would like to address some of the concerns that were brought up tonight, and one of them, the main one with my expertise, is drainage. And item number D3 is requiring the petitioner to provide a groundwater hydrology analysis, which hasn't been done yet. So that was one of the concerns, was drainage. The other one is footing drains, and so that's required under D3. There's a requirement for stormwater pollution prevention, and there's also one for erosion control. The developers testified tonight that they are going to do a jurisdictional wetlands determination, and that by doing such an investigation, they are putting themselves at the mercy of the regulatory agencies such as the Corps of Engineers and the municipality of Anchorage. So the wetlands are going to be addressed. That's what we've heard tonight. The drainage is going to be addressed. There is, I believe the traffic department has approved this, and for those reasons, I'm going to support this motion. Are there any additional comments or findings? Is there any objections to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. And for the record, Mr. Cole has to leave with a prior commitment. Thank you, Mr. Cole, for staying. The next case before us tonight is S12046-1, Spruce Ridge Estates. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Briefly, Plat 2013-42 was recently recorded, and there are two plat notes prohibiting access onto East 88th Circle. The petitioner is requesting to modify the plat notes so as to allow an existing driveway onto Lot 9. The driveway serves Lot 9, which is not developed. The existing driveway is the preferred way to access Lot 9 because of the challenges in accessing Estate Circle. First, the topography is such that Estate Circle is approximately 10 feet lower than the frontage to Lot 9. Second, the width of the frontage of Lot 9 on Estate Circle is only 66 feet wide, and the minimum required separation distance between a driveway and East 88th Avenue is 60 feet, so that doesn't leave a lot of room for having the proper distance. East 88th Avenue is owned and maintained by DOT. Both DOT and the municipal traffic engineer have no objection to allowing the existing driveway to remain. Notes 1 and 8 repeat the same restriction prohibiting access to East 88th Avenue. Note 8 should be deleted entirely because it's just duplicative. Also, Note 1 should be reworded to state direct vehicular access to East 88th Avenue is prohibited except for a single driveway at the southeast corner of Lot 9. The department's recommending that on page 4 that in Part B that Note 8 be deleted and that the plat note that I had just stated as part of A be approved. There's an error in the way it's written. It says southwest corner of Lot 9, but it should say southeast corner. The petitioner pointed that out to staff just before the meeting. Be happy to answer any questions. The petitioner's here to give a presentation as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions of staff? Mr. Walker.
Did you say that it should say southeast, not southwest?
That's exactly right.
Are there additional questions of staff? Thank you. May we have the public testimony portion of the hearing is open. May we have the petitioner's representative. Do you wish to reserve time for rebuttal?
Yes, I do. Whatever remaining time.
Okay.
Thank you.
State your name for the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Tom Dreher. I'm with the S4 Group, and I represent the petitioners tonight who are here in the auditorium with us, Mr. Andy Eaker and Mary Hughes. We concur with the department's recommendations on page 4 and with that change to the southeast corner, just a typo, I think. And of course, on page 12 that you've already seen is the letter from the DOT agreeing to the driveway accessing that point there. And of course, the municipal traffic engineer is agreeing also. And just to keep things in perspective, that the distance between estates and this driveway is 150 feet, which is the minimum for another roadway. So, I mean, there could actually be another roadway there with as many ADTs as you could imagine there. And we're only talking about 8.4 ADTs coming out there in that driveway. It's a driveway that's been there forever. I'm not sure if you guys have driven by there or not. And it was put in that location because it's a logical place to put it when you see as far as the terrain goes and whatnot. And so with that, I will keep it short and reserve whatever time I have remained for rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you. You have 8 minutes and 42 seconds left for rebuttal. Use them wisely. Are there questions for the petitioner's representative? Thank you. Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify tonight? Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing none, Would you like to use any of your rebuttal time, Mr. Dreher?
I'll just make myself available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions of the petitioner's representative? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
The public testimony portion of this hearing is closed. The matter now rests with the board. May I have a positive motion for case S12046-1 for vacation?
I think we're making a motion to modify the notes, aren't we?
Yes.
Not a vacation, simply a modification?
I believe so.
That's what the
Yes.
department recommendations only provide for modifying 2 notes.
Yes, you're correct, Mr. Walker.
I move as to S12046-1, Spruce Ridge Estates lots 1 through 9, that Note 1 be modified to state direct vehicular access to East 88th Avenue is prohibited except for a single driveway at the southeast corner of Lot 9.
Thank you. And Mr. Kane seconds. Mr. Walker, will you speak to your motion, please?
I believe that, one, this driveway has long been here serving that lot, and that and the typo needs to be fixed. And I would approve the lot, the note to the plat to be changed.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Mr. Kange.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted to point out that both the DOT and the Municipal Traffic Engineering Division have no objection to allowing the existing driveway to remain. I tend to support this motion, which I've seconded.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Any additional findings? Any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. Yes, I do. And Mr. Walker, are you going to make this motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
I move as to S12046-1, Spruce Ridge Estates lots 1 through 9, that plat note number 8 be deleted.
Thank you. And I need a second. Mr. Kange. Mr. Walker, will you speak to your motion, please?
Plat note 8 is no longer needed in as much as a vehicular access is being allowed in note number 1 as modified.
Thank you. Is there any additional discussion or findings? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. The next case is S12047-1, Little Bear Subdivision. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This preliminary plat is a request for subdivision of 5 lots into 1 tract of land with a vacation of a 10-foot wide slope maintenance and construction easement located along the eastern boundary of existing lots 2A through 5A. Vacation of a 5-foot wide sewer easement along the northeastern boundary of existing lot 5A. There's also a request for vacation of a 30-foot right-of-way located along the eastern boundary of existing lots 2A through 5A. This subdivision will eliminate lot lines between 5 lots and create proposed Tract 1 of Little Bear Bluff subdivision. The petitioner is proposing to vacate a 5-foot sewer easement, a 10-foot slope maintenance and construction easement, and 30-foot right-of-way easement on the east side of existing lots 2A through 5A. The vacation requests have been reviewed and found to conform to municipal vacation policy. Staff has reviewed and evaluated the petitioner response to the municipal vacation public policy document and finds that they have answered the required conditions to vacate a public right-of-way. Staff has spoken with the traffic engineer about the recommendation of approval, and the traffic engineer has verbally agreed to the right-of-way vacation. Furthermore, staff has reviewed the surrounding neighborhood sidewalks and finds adequate constructed sidewalks along the west side of Reflection Drive, separated in the section to Boniface Parkway, with existing sidewalks along Boniface Parkway roadway. Homeowner response to the neighborhood have expressed verbally and in writing back lot trail easement is not desirable and existing sidewalks are adequate. Staff has no objection to the 5-foot sewer easement vacation, as petitioner will be required to submit a private development review to AWW Field Services at the time of construction. Staff would like to recommend vacation approval and plat approval subject to A 1 and 2 and B 1 through 6 found on page 9. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions for staff? With no questions for staff, the public testimony portion of the hearing is now open. May we have the petitioner's representatives come forward, state your name for the record, and would you like to reserve any time for rebuttal?
Yes, I would. Thank you. The remaining time I end up with. Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, planning staff, and concerned citizens in the auditorium tonight. Thank you all. With me tonight is Cody Holtquist, the petitioner, and also Mr. Dave Grenier and Brandon Markow with Tried Engineering for any of your engineering type questions. We took this to the Community Council and we got a very positive response on it. Of course, there was a few concerns, of course. We concur with all the department recommendations that are on your packet, page number 9. And I would just like to also note for some of the people here that the existing lots, just as they sit right now, would allow up to 33 units. So we're not, it would be a slight change, but really not much of a change percentage-wise on the number of allowed units between what's existing and what we're proposing in R2M. It's just kind of a direct relationship to the square footage and how many units you can put on there. And with that, I'll keep myself open for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. You have 8 minutes and 50 seconds for rebuttal.
Thank you.
Are there any questions of the petitioner or the petitioner's representatives tonight? Thank you. Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify on this matter tonight? If there are more than one, please move to the front 2 rows so that we can be expeditious. Thank you. State your name for the record, please.
My name is Michelle Giroux. Last name is spelled G-I-R-A-U-L-T. I'm new to this process, so there may be more questions. And the specific issue of the vacation, I'm not as concerned about as I am about the traffic in the property, and I'm not really clear. I did call the Holtquist to try to understand how the units are going to come onto Reflection Drive, but the biggest concern is the number of cars that may be exiting on a very short turn. When the property was rented by, I believe, a church, there were kids that would shoot out of that driveway onto Reflection as cars are turning from Boniface. It posed an extreme traffic hazard, I think. So that was my biggest concern, and just a question that I had of the group here tonight to understand what the traffic issues would be. The vacation of the back trail, I don't think any of us want a back trail or a paved trail, so that's not an issue, and I'm not speaking to that, but I'm really concerned about traffic.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. Next person wishing to testify?
Hi. My name is Mike Baker, and my concern is also traffic. The location of this is in a funny place on Boniface as well, so that if you're going south on Boniface, you have to go up to the 40th Avenue and do a U-turn to come down so that you can turn onto Reflection Drive. And the same, if you come out of Reflection Drive, you have to go down to 36th Emmanuel and do a U-turn to go north or south. So I guess the thing is that it just really doesn't seem like a good location to put a lot more cars to make all these U-turns and not make any changes to Boniface, to the artery there.
Thank you. And are there any questions? Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify?
Good evening. My name is Scott Pride, Pryde, and I'm an East Anchorage homeowner and a resident of the neighborhood that's in question right now. My primary concern with this project is that it will reduce the safety in our family-oriented neighborhood. I've got a secondary concern on it probably will destroy a large portion of a green belt that's in that neighborhood too. Currently, we have a lot of families that make use of the whole neighborhood. Children, parents, families, and their pets are constantly making use of the neighborhood, whether it's playing, jogging, riding bicycles, playing pickup basketball, roller skating, walking pets. You can almost always go through our neighborhood and see an abundance of people in their yards, on the streets, being very active. Our neighborhood has two entrances. One of them is at Defiance and Tudor. The other is a very steep hill with a blind crest at Reflection and Boniface. That's where the driveway to the property of concern is. That's what's been mentioned a couple times already. These changes are going to allow for a big increase in the flow of vehicular traffic in our neighborhood, and that just plain and simply will make it less safe for everybody in it. The proposed change also uses a very dangerous driveway with severe blind spots on the crest of Reflection. This blind spot endangers not just the motor vehicles, but pedestrians and cyclists. In the last couple of days, I've read quite a bit about the municipality's long-range plan for East Anchorage. In it includes numerous mentions of ensuring and keeping residents safe, keeping the neighborhoods desirable. Very specific mention in it is in the vision map of that document, shows this specific area to be labeled as an area of low change. And that outcomes also in East Anchorage, if they're going to happen, are supposed to keep the neighborhood safe, the people safe for walking and biking, and minimize negative impacts in the neighborhoods. I believe there are many things about this request that go against the municipality's long-range plan for East Anchorage. Enhancing the quality of life for existing and future East Anchorage citizens is a quote directly out of it. I can't envision that diminishing the safety and destroying probably a very large portion of a green belt is what satisfies that goal. And then something else I also picked up on, page 52 of the large document that was put in the agenda tonight does state that the traffic engineering does not support the vacation request of the 30-foot right-of-way. So I just wanted to make sure that that was known. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Fuller.
Yes, do you have any idea how many residences are serviced by Reflection Drive? How many hundred?
No, I don't.
400?
We've got
500?
I would guess 300 to 500.
500?
Yeah, I'm guessing. I don't count. It goes from Defiance, it loops around Reflection Lake, curves onto Reflection, up the hill. Then there's another street in there, Emich, which circles them, several cul-de-sacs off each of them.
Right.
Every property on there, except for maybe two, are developed and are being lived in. When I walk my dog in the wintertime, driveways are full. In the mornings, I can count at any point in time 50 to 60 vehicles parked on the street for overnight parking. There's just,
right.
we're full.
This would be less than a 10% change, and it would be on the edge of your community, not in the middle of your community.
Well, if I've got a glass of water that's full and I add 10% to it, that's flowing over the sides. I don't disagree that, at this point, I don't consider it a small change. There are 5 lots up there, residential lots. Per the vision of the plan, per the long-range planning, they were looked at, they were considered. And they were said, yeah, it's good like that. I can accept it. But, personally, I don't like the idea. The long-range plan, it goes against what's in the long-range plan.
And what, I think you mentioned there's some green belt or something that would be
Yeah, but between the homes that are on Reflection, existing,
right,
it would be the north and west side of them is where this development's going to go. That development on Boniface between them, it's a very large green belt. Huge trees, grass, just a lot of vegetation.
Are you talking about the right-of-way, the road that's being...
I think what I've referred in there, it's the first time I saw it, somebody's calling it Joyce Road.
Yeah. So, but you're only losing 10 feet or 15 feet.
I've owned acreage and I know treed properties on a hill. And anytime you remove trees, especially large trees that are like there, you damage things. Water flow, they absorb water that just won't get picked up anywhere else. We have a lot of water through there right now from Reflection Lake and the creek that runs over through underneath the trailer park. And plus, guess what? We're a city. We don't want to lose green belts. The next closest big green belt to us is probably Baxter Bog.
Thank you.
Mr. Fuller, do you have any additional questions? Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
When you're in your neighborhood, have you seen anybody using the 30-foot right-of-way that's known as Joyce Drive?
I've walked it. I've seen kids using it.
Is it paved?
No. No, it's completely what I would call a green belt. I don't know a better term. It's grass, it's trees. There's an obvious path on it that goes in between these two areas.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Thanks for your time and consideration.
Any additional testimony tonight?
Hi, my name is Mark Nalty, and my main concern is traffic as well. I consider that intersection at Reflection and Boniface to be dangerous under the best of conditions. When you're coming down Boniface and turn onto Reflection, it's almost an acute angle back. It's a very sharp turn, and people on Boniface are going at a high rate of speed. You're always concerned that you're going to get rear-ended, just having to slow down to such a slow rate to make that curve. The roadway cannot be widened. There's utilities and a large retaining wall on one side and a steep fall off on the other. And then you're going down a very steep road down Reflection Drive from that point down. People in the winter, they lose traction on that road all the time. So if you're coming up and there's a lot of traffic coming out, you're just going to start sliding back. It happens all the time. When there's very little traffic on there, people can accommodate it. You see a car that's coming down that hill and they've lost traction, you can back up and you can get out. If you add all these extra cars, the number of accidents is going to undoubtedly escalate, and the severity of them can escalate as well. If you're using that one egress out of the current lots as your feeder on to there, there's only about 2 car lengths coming out of there up to Reflection Drive. It's going to be terribly congested. And again, the issue I think is significant that traffic and accidents are going to increase dramatically. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
My name is Ted Gild, G-U-I-L-D. I've been on Reflection since 1991. I was one of the first ones. I've noticed a lot of accidents on that street. It's a very, very steep hill going up to Boniface. It's not very wide, and we're not so concerned, I don't think, about the traffic down on Image Circle and Reflection. What I'm concerned about is the traffic coming out in that little short section at the top of the hill. 28 units in there, you can conceive there might be, 56 cars coming in and out of there. And like the other individual before me said, there's a very short distance as you come off of Boniface onto Reflection. And if there's snow built up on both sides of the street where they've graded, it's very hard to see, and when you come around the corner there, there's only maybe two car lengths before you get to that little driveway that comes out of that property. So I perceived that if 2 or 3 cars were turning, which I follow my wife home at night sometimes, we turn together. If we both had to stop real fast, one of us would be out onto Boniface and could get rear-ended or broadsided for making that turn onto Boniface. Onto Reflection Drive, I mean. And I want to say that there's a lot of kids that play on that street during the winter on the hill. And it just is a magnet. It draws kids from the trailer park. They're always on that hill ski boarding during the winter and skateboarding during the summer. So there's kids up and down on that hill all the time. And I've noticed that since I've been there, that cars going up, a lot of times they have to start in front of my house, which I'm about the ninth house down. They have to start in front of me and go up the hill real fast to try to make it up the hill if it's not sanded. And a lot of times I see cars having to back down off that hill, 2 and 3 cars at a time. And I don't know if my daughter is she's in a house across from me, but she's had a couple of cars that have hit her fence and and the light pole right there in the corner. And I just also want to note that Reflection and Image is a bus route. So it is a lot of kids and buses in that area. It's an actual bus route. That's all I have to.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Kind of short. I'm Claudia Phillips. I'm one of the homeowners on Reflection Drive. We've already talked a great deal about the traffic, and I also have issues with the traffic, but I specifically wanted to make a point to Mr. Fuller. I wanted to offer a counterpoint. You're correct. This is probably a high-density, 20 condos. They're probably going to have 20 cars, maybe 50 if they have 2 people in the condos. And when you look at a 500-car neighborhood, that seems like it's a small number, but it's where it's located. It's very dense, and it's right at probably the most dangerous part of the Reflection Defiance area, and that's the point I wanted to make.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify?
I, too, live on that Reflection. My name is Jessica Giles, and I've just seen numerous accidents and people even stopping, turning across that road. It's so blind, you can't see anybody coming out of that driveway, and that's the only exit for them. It's just going to, I think, bottleneck. It's super scary.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Please move forward down to the first 2 rows if you're going to testify.
My name is Casey Curtis, Curtiss. I realize we're starting to sound like a broken record here about the traffic on this hill, but we're all in agreement. The truth is, it's actually a very dangerous hill. From the first moment I had to drive down it, I actually overshot it on Boniface. The problem is, you're coming down on Boniface, it's a 45-mile-per-hour zone. The hill comes right up, the turn comes right up on you. It's a sharp right, but then it's not just a right angle. It immediately curves further to the right, and it curves uphill, and there's a crest, a blind crest, right? Blind crest. You can't see anyone coming up out of the division when this happens. Unfortunately, the current driveway to this area where they want to change the zoning it's actually before that crest. It's actually coming downhill as well. So in slippery conditions, it's very dangerous here. Anyone coming up from the subdivision can't see anyone immediately coming out of the driveway, and then coming in off Boniface at a high speed, typically you'd be slowed down at this point, otherwise you're going to blow right past it, but it's still, like I said, it immediately curves around. You can't see anything that's coming out of there. This is a very dangerous area. It's unfortunate that it was designed like that, but I don't see it changing as it's already been stated. There's already a retaining wall there and a drop-off on the hill. And that's about it.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify?
Hi, my name is Chuck Wright. I also live on Reflection Drive. Just generally, my wife and I have lived there for over 20 years. And there's just no benefit to this project for our neighborhood, the hundreds of people that do live in the valley. And quite the contrary, more people, more noise, more traffic. The aesthetics will decrease. You'll be looking at high condos instead of trees. Our property values will probably decrease just because it's a less desirable neighborhood with the condos up there than what is currently there. And I was going to speak about the traffic. The previous speakers have spoken very well about it, and I could just reiterate my concerns. I avoid that intersection in the winter, choosing to go in by Tudor, even though that's a much longer way through the residence. It's just hazardous as is, and to add a driveway 30 feet in from Boniface and the traffic that probably would involve 40 or 50 more cars coming and going, I just don't think that's wise. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
I'm just Guild, G-U-I-L-D, Diane. Been on the property for 20 plus years. I'm just dittoing everything that's been presented, but the majority of our year is winter months, ice and snow. So we're up against that the majority of the year. And increased traffic. No, not a good idea for any of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Anyone else at all? This is your last chance. Would Mr. Dreyer, would you like to use your time for rebuttal? You have 8 minutes and 50 seconds.
Thank you. To start off, on page 9, one of the conditions, B2, is resolving with MOA traffic section the need for a plat note restricting the location number and authorized driveway entry points to the new lot. This subdivision here doesn't actually change the access point to this lot. As you can see, Boniface, you can't access onto that. You can't access to the south. It's too steep to hit the remaining part of Joyce down there, and it's not wide enough anyway. So the only place this parcel can access is where the existing driveway is now, which heads north, kind of off the northeast corner of our proposed tract. And so whether this subdivision happened or not, that would be the only access point. So we're not actually going to change the access point. And that the traffic engineering note protects the neighbors, because and Dave here will testify that what kind of criteria we have to go through to get an access point is pretty extensive. It all has to be according to the design criteria manual. It's this thick. And it considered slopes, site distances, and things like that. And again, the density, we're not really changing. Well, it changes a little bit. But right now, the existing lots, if you didn't do a thing, you could put up 33 units, and by our proposed, you could put in 36. So it's an increase of 3 possible units, but I won't be able to get there anyway. But so it's going to be very similar to what's existing now. Dave, would you like to add anything, or?
Mr. Chairman, my name's Dave Grenier, Triad Engineering, and I'd just like to point out the design process and the approval process for a driveway. Basically, you work with 3 different departments. You work with the traffic engineering department, you work with zoning, and you work with development services, public works department. The criteria is based on distance from the intersection. It's based on grade and how you approach the not only the driveway coming into the project, but the existing road that you're tying into. Signage comes into it, lighting, make sure there's adequate lighting, make sure there's adequate signage, and addressing the grades, the approach grades coming onto the street are all taken into account. Sight distance is another major issue, and we understand the concerns of the neighbors that use this road, and addressing all those issues will be worked out with the approval of traffic engineering.
And with that, we'll leave ourselves open to any questioning. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions of the petitioner? And there are Mr. Walker first, Mr. Story second, and Mr. Fuller third.
On the staff notes on page 52, there's comments from traffic engineering that states that they think that the 33-foot roadway reserve shouldn't be vacated.
That was before when I received that. Then I supplied a bunch more information to them, and it's in the front pages of your packet here. And now traffic engineering, with the additional information I provided, they are concurring with the vacation of the right-of-way.
Okay. And is that
I'm sorry, excuse me?
this supplemental stuff?
There is one packet that I gave. Oh, yeah, that's part of it. That's the January 30th.
And is it the blue thing that's getting vacated?
Let me catch up with you here. Oops.
What is the
blue thing? I think is the creek from Reflection Lake.
You're on that first page. Okay, is the grid map.
Yes.
And the blue thing is showing all of the pieces
that have already been
vacated on the east side, correct?
And so you're wanting to vacate the uncolored spot between the green and the white?
Yes, correct. Yeah, and the maps that are subsequent on that show the progression down through the ages of how that came about.
So it's already been vacated on the other side, and each one of those lots has already recaptured that
Correct.
property.
Yes.
And is that, so that's currently not a roadway? It's not being used?
No. There is a sewer main going down it.
And then there's the community trail. Kids probably bike on it. People walk in there? Or?
I don't know. I mean, there's a old Jeep trail or something.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Story.
And through the chair, Mr. Dreyer, what access does lots 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5A currently have as individual lots?
As individual lots, what we would do there?
Or what do they have now?
Oh,
What's the current access?
Yeah,
for
let me
those
just.
5 lots.
Got too many maps going here. Oh, 16. Their current access would be off a Reflection Drive, kind of off that, where the curve on Lot 1 is up there, probably about halfway down through that.
So they have driveway easements through the other lots?
No, we would create
What do they currently have?
right-of-way easement. Excuse me?
What are the 5 lots currently?
Yeah, there's a current driveway that comes off of there, correct, that services the existing buildings on there
So
now.
1 through 5, they have driveway easements for each lot to ingress and egress through each other?
That's what they're using. I'm assuming that they have a driveway,
But wouldn't
because they're all owned by the same person.
So don't they have access to Boniface?
No.
No.
So the only access that they would have would be to the 30-foot right-of-way?
To the area off of Reflection
To
Drive.
the west, or to the east, sorry.
Well, to the northeast.
Right
That's where the
now-
existing drive is now.
As individual lots,
Mhm.
they all have access to the 30-foot right-of-way to the east.
Oh, you're asking me that? Yeah.
So then that right-of-way wouldn't be in excess,
That right-of-way is in excess.
not in its current configuration.
No, okay, I guess we're miscommunicating here a little bit.
So we have lots 1 through 5.
Yes.
Right now, as it stands, each of those lots don't have access to Boniface.
No.
Their
They
legal
don't have physical access.
Their legal access is to the 30-foot right-of-way that's to the east of those lots.
No, because if you look on the tax maps, 1A through 5A, when they did the taking on Boniface for the widening, that is actually all just one tax code now. If you click on it, it's just one. And it accesses the driveway on Reflection Drive.
Page 15, you can see, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's fine.
For the chair, page 15, you can see a long driveway.
So if it's under one ownership, I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
have access, but they don't have a legal document that provides access to each individual lot. So if they sold the middle lot, they would not have access.
No, because we own the lots now. My client owns the lots now.
But in the
And we're going to
legal
turn them into
aspect,
one big lot.
The legal aspect of the access for those lots is the 30-foot easement to the east. Just because you own the lots, the legal access to those lots isn't on Boniface, it's on the 30-foot right-of-way that's to the east of that.
The access to a lot has to be on a street, and a
So
street,
only-
wait, excuse me. The access of a lot has to be onto a street. 30-foot leftover half portion is not a street. So the legal access here is off of Reflection Drive and the physical access.
Mr. Dreyer, I
Yes.
know I'm out of order here for Mr. Fuller and Mr. Whitfield, but isn't there a bluff between the former, I can't remember the name of the former road that's to the east, but isn't there a bluff that is on these lots that prohibits physical access at this time?
Yeah, you can't have access onto that because you can see on the map there that it's pretty steep within that 30 feet. Just a second, I'll grab the actual percentage slopes in there.
I think it's page 16.
Yeah, and well, I computed the actual slope. On the southeast corner there, that 30 feet is about a 33% side slope. And you go about a couple hundred feet up and it stays around 30%, and then it's about 20%, and then goes to 16% further up to the north.
So you couldn't, even if you wanted to use the portion that you're asking to vacate, it's not physically possible based on the current topography.
Correct.
Thank
Yeah, you wouldn't put a driveway on a 33% slope.
Mr. Fuller.
Yes, I was just wanting to clarify that driveway, somebody had mentioned 30 feet, but it looks more like it's 150 to 170 feet back from Boniface, correct?
It's 100.
In the range, Mr. Fuller, yes, it's in the range of 150 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to address Mr. Story's concerns with regard to that 30-foot right-of-way on the east side of the property. I think it's really important to take a look at the two sections of code that revolve around access, that being legal and physical access and abutting a publicly dedicated street. When you look at this property, as it sits today as 5 lots or 4 lots, actually, I'm sorry, 5 lots. Each one of those lots does have legal and physical access. We've got a driveway off of Reflection we could, in fact, enter into an access agreement with the property. This property is under single ownership. They could enter into an access agreement with themselves, provide legal and physical access. And of course, as it sits today, the property does abut a publicly dedicated street. It abuts Boniface. The 30-foot wide right-of-way to the east, it can't be constructed to municipal standards. There's no way. The topography would suggest that it's unconstructable, and the fact is that you need a wider right-of-way to actually build a roadway here to access those properties. So I thought I'd just address that. Hopefully that helps you. Thank you.
Are there any additional questions? I have Mr. Story.
Yes, through the chair, staff, thank you for that clarification on that. So traffic engineering, they had a lot of comments before. I mean, right now they're saying that verbally they are in support of the vacation of the right-of-way, but the notes or their comments back on pages 51 and 52 are kind of contrary to that. So what's changed between the time that they commented versus now?
Through the chair, Mr. Story, yes, traffic it was verbal with the municipal traffic director and the current planning supervisor. It came down just too late here. It was Friday afternoon before we sent the packets out that they came to an agreement, and the comments weren't revised to reflect that. That's why I noted in the staff report that it was a verbal agreement. And in the let's see, the petitioner's page 27 and 28, he addresses all the comments that traffic was asking for earlier.
I think it's my turn. There were, I believe, 12 people or 11 people testified tonight about the traffic. Mr. Grenier, could you summarize how you foresee the traffic issue being resolved with this new development?
Mr. Chairman, yes. The first thing we would do is establish a meeting with traffic engineering with the physical attributes of the existing situation. We would show the proposed driveway as relates to the codes. That, as was pointed out, it is 150 feet approximately 150 feet from the intersection, and this is well within the regulations as it relates to driveways. In fact, that would qualify as a street intersection at 150 feet. So we'd show the geometric configuration of how that driveway would look from a horizontal and a vertical situation. We would address sight distance. We would address lighting. Is there adequate lighting at that location? And we address signage. And then coming from that meeting, we would get comments as it relates to that driveway, and we would make adjustments based on their comments.
Thank you. And as a professional engineer with years of experience with traffic issues, do you believe that the traffic issue is resolvable for this development?
I feel with the input from traffic engineering and what we've heard here this evening, local experience is important. It's important to take those comments into account. And yes, I feel that we can get an intersection in there that's both safe and functional.
Thank you. Are there additional questions of the petitioner's representative or the petitioner? Mr. Story.
And you do have plans to do that? Does the public here have some type of, maybe not guarantee, but something from you that is actually going to happen? Or, I mean, is it in the development plans to do that?
Through the chair, Mr. Story, as far as the process goes, that has not started yet as far as submitting the site plan, but that will be the next step. This was the first step in getting the property consolidated. There will be a site plan that will be submitted, and we'd be more than happy to share that progress with the community and keep them informed.
Are there any additional questions? Thank you very much. And the public testimony period is closed. The matter now rests with the board. May I have a positive motion in the case of S12047-1 Little Bear Bluff subdivision for approval of the request to vacate? Mr. Kange and Mr. Walker is going to second. Mr. Kange, will you state your motion, please?
Thank you, through the chair. In case S12047-1 Little Bear Bluff subdivision, I move to approve the request to vacate the 30-foot right-of-way known as Joyce Drive, the 10-foot slope maintenance and construction easement, and vacate a 5-foot sewer easement, subject to the conditions listed on our package, page 9, conditions 1 through 2.
Thank you. And Mr. Walker seconds. Would you speak to your motion, please, Mr. Kange?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, in the aforementioned case, it appears that the request to vacate is substantiated by testimony from staff, as supported in our staff packet, particularly with regard to the agency's non-objection and having no comments with regard to this vacation request. I appreciate all the testimony from the folks who came in. I think what you have to understand in this case is we don't really dive into the traffic and the safety issues in this. What we're asked to look at is the merits of combining these 5 lots into 1 lot, and I think you'll get some comfort in the restrictions that are placed on the developer in this, and many of them were mentioned here this evening. So with that in mind, I turn it over for other facts and finding.
Thank you. Is there any, I'm sorry, the gentleman raising your hand, the public testimony period is closed. No, I'm sorry. This public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. Are there any additional discussions on the motion on the floor?
Some of the additional findings I'd like the record to reflect is the map on page 16 that shows the slope in the area of where that 30-foot right-of-way is too steep to build a road to meet municipal standards. Also, at 30 feet width is no longer wide enough to meet in the standards. And with the elimination of the 5 lots, treating them as 1, they'll have legal access on Reflection Drive. So a need for a road servicing the 5 lots along that side is no longer necessary. And the additional information that was submitted by the S4 group supporting the long history of the road in the area and its vacation along the other side suggests to me that indeed this 30-foot area is surplus and should be vacated.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? I intend to support this motion, and I concur with staff's findings on pages 6 and 7 that the conditions of the vacation request have been met. They found to conform to the vacation policy. There's no need for the remainder of the right-of-way, as the 30-foot is a half of the 60-foot right-of-way that would be required for a road, and that this is clearly surplus. Finding number 2 on page 7, Joyce Road is not on the official streets and highway plan. Finding number 3, Joyce Road does not lie on a half-mile grid. Finding number 4, does not lie on a quarter-mile grid. And so for those reasons, I too am going to support this motion. Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. May I have a positive motion for approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions? Mr. Kange, and Mr. Walker is going to second. Mr. Kange, will you state your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, in case S1 2047-1, I move to approve the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 6 in our packet.
Thank you. And Mr. Walker seconds. Mr. Kange, would you speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It appears that the conditions to approve the plat have been supported through not only staff testimony, but the reviewing agencies. It appears that their comments have been entered in here, and the petitioner and petitioner's representatives have no objection to those comments.
Thank you. Is there additional discussion or additional findings?
I'd like the record to reflect that we heard testimony from 10 individuals from the neighborhood that live in the area. They were very consistent in their testimony that there's been traffic issues. I do find credible the testimony of one of the individuals who said there are alternate routes in the area on those days when things aren't safer. I think that was Mr. Wright that testified to that. I don't believe that as described here, the plan only increases a potential traffic load of maybe an additional 3 houses or living units in it. It's not a substantial increase. And perhaps with the current development in the area, the redesign of a driveway at that location may in fact make things safer.
Thank you. Is there any additional comments or discussion? Is there any, I have one on item B2, one of the requirements is resolving with the Municipality of Anchorage traffic section the need for plat note restricting the location, number, and authorized driveway entry points to the new plat. So part of the public comments are addressed in this condition of B2. If there are there any objections to this motion? Any? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. The motion is approved. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 21.11.304. The decision of the Platting Board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per AMC 21.11.503, or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision per AMC 21.30.
Who do we make the appeal?
Mr. Fuller.
Some of the concern is that Mr. Cole's vote was still up there, even though he's not here on these last 2 votes. So, I mean, in the official record, his vote won't show up, but on your screen it showed up.
Thank you. Okay, the next case in front of us is Sir, the public testimony is over, and you have that right, and I've just read to you the right, but you go ahead. Please don't ask me to call security. Just control yourself. I will.
This is ridiculous. ridiculous. It is a plan. It really is. To squeeze 28 units into a small place.
We're moving on. The next case, staff. I know.
I can say what I want to say. Yes, I can. I may know darn right well it was up. Just like the other one.
The next case is, I'm lost. Oh, yeah. Okay. The next case is S12048-1, Spruce Creek subdivision, and I request a motion to postpone this case. Mr. Kange and Mr. Walker seconds. Mr. Kange, will you state your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In case S12048-1, I move to postpone the case at the request of the petitioner.
Thank you. And is there any discussion? Is there any objection to this motion? The motion carries. The case, Spruce Creek subdivision, is postponed. Next item on the agenda is appearance request. Are there any appearance requests? Everyone is vacated. Is there any other? Okay. Are there any persons to be heard? No. Sir, are there any reports tonight? No. Are there any board comments tonight? Mr. Walker.
I move to adjourn.
We're not there yet. We're at the reports. Are there any reports? No. Okay. For adjournment. Excuse me, are there any board comments tonight? No? Not even about disruptions?
Don't teach me how to miss a meeting.
Does anyone know where we can go to eat now?
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to adjourn. It's seconded. Any opposition? Motion carries. Meeting is now adjourned. Next item is where to eat dinner.